Okay, I think we're live. Hello, happy
Hello.
Sunday, happy Sabbath, happy whatever day you celebrate. And there's baby Juniper.
She is dealing with getting two new teeth today, so she's in a pretty good mood still, but which I'm surprised. I mean, most babies don't maintain a good mood whenever they're
I've never
teething
seen
like
her in a
that.
bad mood yet.
Yeah.
She's just
Well, you have
continuous
like in the
sunshine.
background. She gets tired and starts getting fussy like any kid does. She doesn't like being tired, but other than that, she's just the happiest little girl in the world. But she never gets mad about anything else except for getting tired. Yeah. She's eating her car right now.
Oh,
Anyway, so you got some tweets you want to go over, right?
yeah. Today I want to finish trying to go over those tweets that I tried to go over yesterday. So I'm not going to have any guests on until after I go over the tweets because I want to make sure I get through them all. They've been backlogged for like a week now. Most of them are about Israel, and they just present different perspectives. So I kind of want to give a little window into what I'm seeing on social media and where some of my positions are coming from. So let's see. Like this one, for example, all civilian deaths are horrible. Hamas's massacre targeted civilians. Israel warns civilians, targets Hamas sites, but can't avoid civilian deaths. Do you think B is morally worse than C? I do too, but a lot of people seem to be reversing it and faulting Israel somehow for civilian casualties and overlooking Hamas. Like I don't know, their moral equivalency is very different than mine.
I was watching. Do you ever watch Bridget Fetisi? Sorry,
Who?
Bridget Fetisi. She's been on Rogan before a couple times. She has a show called Dumpster Fire on YouTube, where she goes over news events and stuff like that. She was making the same exact thing we've been saying for the last week or so about this. She said starting out that she was pro-Israel and all that stuff, but she said she was making the same point about the fact that everyone seems to be holding Israel to this other standard that they are not holding Palestine to, and they're not holding any other countries to. They're not holding Ukraine to that standard. If Ukraine, you know, and Ukraine has also done some things like they've also launched some attacks and everything that have taken out civilians in Russia, and no one's making those kind of proclamations against Ukraine.
What?
In
Why?
general,
Why Israel? Is it the imperialist, capitalist colonialism, or is it anti-Semitism, or is it both?
I think it's both, honestly. But anyway, I'm just saying. But she was. That's the first person I've seen in the media that was making that same point that we've been saying that they keep holding Israel to
I've
this.
been hearing it on here all week from
Oh,
people. Hey, Lindsay.
yeah.
In fact, that I've been rewatching a Zarathustra Serpent video on Kyle Kalinske where he uses clips from Kyle Kalinski's show where Kyle makes the exact same talking points that the guests on our show have been making all week, and he goes through and he debunks every single one of them. So I want to put that video in the chat, and I'm going to just keep referring people to this video, and then if they have anything new to say outside this video, we can address that. But I don't want to keep just having the same conversations that I think this guy is addressing even better than any of us can.
I started
So
watching it again earlier. I haven't seen that video in a little while, but was there one specific section or anything? Like, I think we could show a clip
all
from
of
it
the
anyway.
entire I thought about it, but it's so long, like the entire video, it's almost 2 hours. There is
Yeah.
one section where he goes through and he numbers the like myth number one, myth number two, myth number three, but even that is quite long. So it was hard to find a small enough clip
Sure.
to show on the stream because I think the whole video is worth watching, and to take any part of it out of context is gonna um, distort the message of the whole video. Because not only does he debunk Kyle's talking points, but he tries to show Kyle as he has this theory of bigotry where there's 4 levels of bigotry, and he tries to show the different levels of bigotry using Kyle as an example. So it's not even just about giving the history of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and debunking the myths around it, but it's also showing what bigotry looks like today in the modern world.
Yeah.
So it gets very meta.
Yeah, it's a great video. I just didn't know if you had a specific section that was that
All
'cause
of
I
it,
couldn't think of one
every
myself.
frame of it, every word of
It's
it,
a good video.
because it's the same exact conversations that we're having on here, all compressed into one under 2 hour video with detailed refutations and scholarship and history. And I don't know that I fully agree on his he has this belief in unconscious bigotry, which we've talked about before, and I'm not sure people can be anti-Semitic and not realize they're anti-Semitic. If they have some kind of bias against Jewish people, that they're probably conscious of it. And he makes the case for Kyle being unconsciously bigoted toward Israel, but I question the unconscious part. So,
I don't think there's anything unconscious about Kyle's bigotry toward Israel because I see that myself. But I do think there are some examples of somebody maybe having a knee-jerk reaction towards like a certain race or something like that just because they haven't had enough experience with them, but it may not really translate to conscious bigotry, but maybe they just like they have like a just because something's new or different. I think that does exist to some degree, but I don't think it's really bigotry. I think it's just like not having enough exposure.
but
I guess
if
you
you're
call it
having a
bigotry.
knee-jerk reaction, you're conscious of that knee-jerk. It's not unconscious. It's I still keep getting hooked up on the word unconscious.
Well, when we say knee-jerk reaction, what we're saying is like literally the reflex of we're comparing it to the reflex of whenever a doctor hits that little hammer on your knee and your knee jerks out, right? I'm saying
Yeah,
that
but you're
that's what
conscious
we
that
mean.
you're having a conscious reaction to the hammer on your knee.
But you're not thinking to make your knee move. That's the point. Is that it happens without you thinking about it. That's what they mean by knee jerk. It's almost like having like a disgust response to something, like just like if you eat something that's gross, right, and you gag on it or spit it out, you're not necessarily thinking, "Oh, this is gross. I'm going to spit it out." Sometimes you just react. But I'm not saying that, I don't think that's really equivalent to bigotry. I think that's more, like I said, like a lack of exposure, which isn't a conscious. It's not conscious or unconscious hatred or discrimination, in my opinion.
I'm digesting it. Let me think
I'm just
about
saying
it.
that I think some people call that unconscious bigotry, but I don't think that it's really bigotry. I think it's cheating.
Like, to me,
try
if you're
call
gonna
it bigotry.
hate a group of people for their characteristics, that's something you can only do consciously.
Right.
Like, you're aware that you don't like them. You're probably aware of what about them you don't like. You probably have this conscious narrative running in your head about them that's reinforcing that dislike.
I mean, have you ever seen a kid, like a little child, like a baby, react? Now, my child doesn't. None of my children, her sister didn't either. Neither did my sisters or anybody in my family. But I have seen a baby like get scared by the appearance of just a black person, just because they have black skin and they're not used to seeing it. And I don't think that child isn't thinking I hate that person. They're not used to it. It's a fear response because it's not something I've seen before.
But it's a conscious response, though.
It's hard to say anything a baby does is fully conscious, but okay.
Well, if it's a human, if it's not a baby, like if a person's never seen a black person and they suddenly see a black person and they jump because it's so unusual or different, that's a conscious. They're conscious of that happening. So I really get caught up on the word unconscious, because all of that is happening in consciousness, in awareness.
I don't know. I can't think of anything specific, but I feel like I've had a instance before in my life where I might have reacted to something in an unconscious way, not necessarily a negative response, but with it without thinking about it. But I can't think of anything, so it's probably not relevant.
Okay, well, I want to get back to some of these tweets.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is the screen still showing? Can you?
Yep.
Is it scrolling?
Everything looks fine. It's good.
Here's one from James Lindsay. A lot of the tweets are about the anti-Semitism on the left, which that's one reason Liberty came on yesterday, was to help me. His position is that there's not a lot of anti-Semitism on the left, and I wanted to show him the tweets. But critical race theory has a Jewish problem. DEI has a Jewish problem. Post-colonial theory has a huge Jewish problem. These are all left-wing ideologies, and then he wrote an essay on the topic. Oh, okay. I like this one from What If Alt-Is. A note to writers: do not build your entire worldview in opposition to wokeism. Wokeism is a historical aberration that formed 10 years ago and will probably die out in the next 5 years. It's a blip on the historic register. Tying your identity to beating it is silly. Wokeism is not the end of the world or the overarching story of modernity. Instead, try to figure out what would come after wokeness. Wokeism here, David Silverman. Oh wait, I'm thinking of different David. But anyway, this is a Jewish person. Wokeism is anti-Semitic. Woke Jews are on the side of Hamas supporters who think Jews deserve to take a back seat in American society. See it and eat it. To be pro-Israel, you need to leave wokeism. I'm not going to go through this whole thread, but this Daniel Friedman is also a Jewish author. He talks about the Nakba, and people try to portray the Nakba as being the persecution by Jews of innocent Palestinians. But the Nakba was actually a reaction to they lost the war of aggression that they started. The British divided the land that was never Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state. In 1948, as soon as the British withdrew and the state of Israel was founded, the Arabs invaded in a genocidal war of extermination, and they lost. That is what they're calling the Nakba, and reframing as aggression on the part of Jewish people and persecution of innocent Arabs. King Crocoduck, who a lot of you may know from YouTube, he does excellent YouTube videos. He's a scientist that debunks a lot of the social justice stuff. He's also Jewish. Much of the confusion that informs anti-Semitism on both the left and the right would be cleared up immediately if only they understood that Jewish identity is fundamentally national in character and requires no religious component. Zarathustra's Serpent talks about that in this video too. Zionism is a Jewish nationalist movement, not a religious movement. The religious faction of it is a small minority. Almost the majority of Jews are secular. Let's see. This is Matthew Iglesias. He's a well-known pundit and blogger. His feeling is it's not really possible to conduct a sustained military campaign in Gaza without killing a lot of civilians, and this is important to consider. Also, that's not what genocide is, like, at all. Here's Christopher Rufo on BLM. They self-consciously adopted the posture of third world liberationism, but understood that armed revolution against the United States was impossible. That's why they have long fetishized Gaza, which provides the vicarious thrill of mass violence against the white oppressor. This is the narrative I've been hearing from the left, that Israel is the colonialist, imperialist, Western oppressor of the less, what do you call the people, like the Native Americans and stuff, that are less advanced or less westernized, the ones that get colonized, the innocents. Okay, this is something. I just want to focus on the Israeli ones. There are millions of people in the West who support Hamas. You cannot negotiate with people whose fundamental, uncompromising demand is your extinction and the extinction of everyone you love. I can't believe this needs to be said out loud. I don't know why this fact keeps getting lost in all of the discussions we've had on this. That's why I keep going back to the Hamas Charter. That is like the giant neon elephant in the room that everybody on the left seems to talk around in their defense of Palestine and their disparagement of Israel as the aggressor. God Saad, Thomas Sowell. Oh, maybe we should watch this video. It's only a minute. I haven't watched it yet. From Thomas Sowell.
Where does the hatred for the Jews come from in history?
Oh, wait, I got to change my sound settings.
I can hear it fine.
I can't on my end.
Fair enough. Hi, Joshua. And welcome to Joshua. And
yeah, hey, Joshua. We'll be taking guests in a minute after I get through these tweets.
Replacements, but they are people who have succeeded an awful lot.
in the midst of other people who have not. Years ago, one official of one of the Jewish organizations in New York asked me, what can Jews themselves do in order to minimize the hostility they face? I gave him a one-word answer: fail. Because as long as you succeed, you're going to be hated.
So the source is success.
It's not only the
Hatred.
success, it's the success starting in poverty, as the Jews did in the United States and in many other countries. And so you not only see them succeed, you see them rise up from the bottom, past other people. The people they've passed don't like it. But there's also the fact that the role they play economically has never been understood. They're middlemen or they're money lenders. And the argument is they really aren't producing anything. You can't see anything tangible that they don't stand at a production line turning out widgets. And so the argument is that they're not producing anything. They're simply gratuitously inserting themselves between the producer and the consumer, and they're parasites, essentially. And this argument has been made, again, not only about the Jews, but about similar groups around the world. And a number of places they have expelled those people or forced them out by mob actions, forced them to flee. And after they left, the economy has collapsed. But it never teaches the lesson to know they were doing something.
So I want to see what how do I get out of here? I want to see what the tweet says. Sowell is smarter than 100 random academics collectively. He speaks common sense in a manner that is okay. The identity-obsessed, radical progressive, I need liberated left are utterly deranged. They think utopia is around the corner if they could only be liberated from some constraint. What is constrained is, in fact, living their authentic psychopathology. Oh, I guess that's not an Israel tweet. I have been reading a lot of propaganda where people, I'm not going to read this whole tweet, are trying to create a distinction between Hamas and the rest of the Palestinian people. The truth is that there is simply no distinction. Not only did the Palestinians elect Hamas in a landslide in 2006, Abbas has refused to hold elections for the past 15 years because he and the U.S. government know Hamas is extremely popular and would win. But we don't have to speculate. We already know there's no distinction. An important poll taken in June of last year by well-known renowned pollsters showed that Palestinians overwhelmingly support Hamas. In fact, Palestinians overwhelmingly stated that the creation of a new terrorist organization in Samaria is the greatest thing to happen to their movement since 1948. Sorry to bust your bubble, but the Palestinian people are by and large a vile, Jew-hating, genocidal, Nazi-like people who have two goals: the destruction of Israel and the murder of as many Jews as they can. The question isn't whether all of them are Hamas PLO, but whether enough of them are. Not all Germans were Nazis, but enough were, and have rendered the rest of them completely irrelevant. Oh, I want to see this video too. Hang on. This is a kindergarten class in Palestine. May of 2023, after a surprise attack on Israel was staged and celebrated.
جاءنا الآن خبر عاجل بعد هجوم محكم مفاجئ وقع قبل قليل واستسلام آخر جندي إسرائيلي تم تحرير كامل الأرض الفلسطينية من البحر إلى النهر. يافا، حيفا، صفد والناصرة وبئر السبع وغيرها من المدن باتت حرة عربية الآن ترفرف على بيوتها وفوق مبانيها الأعلام الفلسطينية.
سمونا احلى زقف كبير لهم بالعالي، يعطيهم الف عافيه، كل الشكر لهم.
I don't know what he's saying. Why do they have their kindergarten kids in military uniforms? Now, I don't know about the machine guns and all those sound effects. That was probably added in, but
Seems like it. Yeah, it would seem like it was kind of amateurishly done too. But yeah, they definitely, which is, I mean, it's really sad. I mean, the fact these children are being indoctrinated from such a young age into violence and hatred. I mean,
because that's their ethos. That is the ethos of Gaza. It's in their children's shows. That was a kindergarten class. It's in their charter. It's really hard to separate, like to separate out these innocent civilians and innocent children and all that people are rallying around right now.
think a lot-
Especially in a war. Like, to me, it's there's rarely been a war where it's this clear.
I think it has a lot to do with like that, just the fact that so many people have this worldview where they think that's either nurture or nature, you know. So they see all of these children as being 100% innocent because they were, nurtured into that mentality as opposed to it just being nature. Although no one considers that with a
Then
racist in the United States.
Their grievance should be against Hamas that nurtured them,
I
not
agree.
Israel.
I agree. I'm not arguing. I'm just saying that I think that's probably where some of that mentality comes from. I'm not on their side. I'm just saying I think that's probably what the mentality comes down to. They think them of these children as being just these, completely poor innocent creatures, and most of them are. To be fair, they are. It's very sad what's being done to them. They're being brainwashed into being essentially not even sleeper agents. It's being like soldiers for a racist and bigoted cause, which is the destruction of all Jewish people, which is just ridiculous.
That everybody around the Western world is holding rallies and waving flags for. That's what I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, they're pretty much holding flags and waving, doing rallies for what are essentially the same exact ethos the Nazis had.
Yes. It's on the left.
Yeah, people on the left have no problem like calling someone Hitler Youth or something if they have a haircut like that. They have no problem like using this idea of like the Hitler Youth thing. And they have no problem hating on people like that or hating children that are raised in racist households down south or something like that. But all these children that are being raised with the same racist, racialized, bigoted doctrine in Palestine, suddenly they're fine, And I would tend to fall on the side of saying that I think all the children that are raised by racists in this country are also innocent to the same degree. But we're talking about war now. We're not talking about a peacetime thing. This is war.
Like they'll call everybody they don't like a racist, Nazi, fascist, and they're waving flags for this regime right here.
Yeah.
All right, there's a few more I want to get through. Let's see. Walking down Bogushov Street in Tel Aviv this morning, past French bakeries, yoga studios, and wine shops, alongside tattooed hipsters wearing Lululemon, it struck me how Western elites increasingly call for the destruction of the only place in the region they would deign to live in. The notion that Israel or the Jews want the genocide of, or even to ethnically cleanse the Palestinian people, is an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory every bit as bizarre, basis as dangerous as the protocols of the Elders of Zion.
I agree. Yeah.
These are these are the fake maps that have been going around, and these are some real maps. You can see this is supposedly the Palestinian territory, which there was no Palestine in 1946. And how it gradually shrunk and Israel took over. But these are not real maps. This is not what really happened. So people looking at those maps should know that they're fake. Here's another set of maps. Chad bullshit propaganda. Virgin historical accuracy. It's hard to see probably on the stream. And I don't know how to blow it up. But I just wanted people to know that there are more accurate maps out there if these are the ones that they're going off of. Let's see. Liberal Jews are starting to wake up to the reality of their... This is what Liberal Holmes yesterday assured me was not happening. Liberal Jews are starting to wake up to the reality of their position in the racial hierarchy. Some Jews may not like to define themselves as white, but it's not up to them or to white purists. Blacks decide who's white, and they count Jews as super whites. Same way Asians are counted as white adjacent for all intents and purposes. As far as Israel goes, the left is always going to classify it as a white European country because that's the way the left defines revolutionary struggle today. It's not complicated. It's just race war. They aren't interested in nuance. Same way they consider it bad taste to talk about black on black murder, which accounts for most homicide in the United States. They aren't interested in being lectured about Muslim on Muslim violence. It's not relevant to their narrative, which is my point from the start has been that this is a narrative. Why do I keep not stopping the share? People who
And
think Israelis and Palestinians belong to two different races are absolutely wild. Tell me which of these guys are brown and which are white.
Right.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, and the thing is, I don't even think people like Rowan are necessarily. I don't think they're being bad faith either. I think they really
I
believe.
think they're watching too much BreadTube.
Yeah, probably.
And not thinking critically about it and not having the correct information to balance it out in the first place. So they're putting a lot of trust in people that are propagating disinformation.
I mean, it was a really good conversation with Liberty something. It was really good for the most part. It's rather productive in many ways, but anytime when it came down to Israel Palestine, it's like suddenly there's this wall that goes up. I mean,
I've noticed that even with Paul, I've noticed that.
Yeah, it's really
And he's not
weird.
even a leftist.
Yeah, it's really strange. I mean, like it's just this wall goes up as soon as Israel Palestine comes up, and like suddenly they can't see anything.
The two things that rise in their imagination seem to be the faces of innocent children, Palestinian children, and Israel as this imperialist, like dominant oppressor that's way more powerful than Palestine. So there's this giant power differential. And so they automatically, Israel gets demonized and the Palestinians get painted as they see innocent women and children. And that's a very shallow, superficial, like you said, knee-jerk reaction to the reality. And I'm sitting here trying to like push that aside and look through that at the actual reality. And that's the only image that seems to dominate their mind and drive their narrative. It's amazing how different Israel's war against Hamas is treated from the U.S. war on ISIS. This article suggests that there were nearly 30,000 civilian casualties. Have we concluded that the war that destroyed ISIS was immoral? This is David Bernstein. He started the Jewish Institute for Liberal Values. I've done a few podcasts with him when I was on Hold My Drink. So he's a very credible source to me. I don't understand how progressive Christians who call for decolonizing everything view their own religion or Islam for that matter. The historical spread of these religions is inseparable from colonization, and their continued spread is textbook colonization. Judaism, by contrast, is not a colonial religion. Unlike Christianity and Islam, there was never a Jewish empire that spread religion through political conquest. There is no evangelical Jewish tradition. No indigenous religions were displaced by Jewish missionaries. Here's David again. Even in the most just wars, innocent people tragically die. Yes, I've been saying that. But they are still just wars. U.S. forces reportedly killed 30,000 civilians in the war against ISIS, which was marching unopposed through the Mideast, murdering and raping. I can't say whether every military action during the war was justified. Probably not. But the overall war effort was necessary, and I suspect the high casualty count could not be avoided. Sometimes wars with high casualty counts need to be fought. Someone has to stop the bad guys, even at great cost. And the excessive moralizing over the inevitable casualties may sound compassionate, but it is not moral at all. I hope some of the people we've been talking to are watching. Things that aren't genocide. Differential rates of murder within native and non-native communities, most of it driven by domestic violence. Differential rates of police killings between races, corresponding to differential rates of violent crime. Misgendering, defensive operations against terrorist states that just revealed through active mass murder of civilians that their will to mass murder of civilians is constrained only by their available means, which they are working tirelessly to augment. Hiding amongst the civilian population and exposing them to danger and death, which is a war crime, cannot be a magic bullet for impunity in the wake of acts of mass murder of civilians. Those who join mass murderers in a call for a ceasefire the day after a mass murder of civilians seek to provide this impunity and thus to enable further acts of mass murder of civilians. This is the Starbucks Workers Union. It's not Starbucks itself, but the members of Starbucks Workers United stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people's right to self-determination, which I support the right to self-determination too. That does not include what happened on October 7th. That's not self-determination. Here's King Crocoduck again with the Motte and Bailey on the occupation. The mot is occupation refers to the aggressive Israeli military presence in the West Bank and the blockade around Gaza, both of which, to varying degrees, repress Palestinian life. Militant resistance against Israel government and army is therefore warranted. The Bailey, occupation refers to any sovereign Jewish presence in the Levant, which is a product of illegitimate claims to the land by European colonial force. Therefore, all Israelis are occupiers and therefore aggressors in this conflict. There is no such thing as an Israeli civilian. Therefore, all Israelis are legitimate targets of militant violence. Justice will only be served when Palestinians have sovereignty over the entire region from the river to the sea. As for the Jews living in the region, what happens to them? That sounds like what I've been hearing out of the left, this narrative right here, this Mott and Bailey. From a politically moderate Jewish student at an elite law school, I'm doing better right now than my Jewish friends on the left. They are truly adrift. They look around and see their lefty friends celebrating the massacre of Jews, and they know they are completely and utterly alone. This is from a Jewish student. This is what Liberty was telling me was not happening. You dissident right. You think the Jews support these fuckers, these snakes who in our name misdirect their power and resources against trifles while ignoring the anti-civilization forces gathered against the U.S., against us. Enough of this nonsense. Oh, this is from the ADL. White supremacists continue to rail against Israel. Yeah, see, they're trying to paint it as the white supremacists on the right. And his tweet is saying, do you think this is the right?
Yeah, I haven't heard anyone on the right, any white supremacists either, like saying any of this shit. I guess I'm not looking at X that much.
Problem. Just like that tweet said, all of this hateful anti-Semitism and support for a terrorist genocide is coming from the left. They're the ones waving all the Palestinian flags around. And the Jews are starting to see that. There were a lot of Jews on the left. I won't lie, the death of innocent Palestinians is weighing heavy on my soul. That is part of the evil that is Hamas, not Israel, Hamas. They know you don't want to harm innocents, but put you in a position where you have no choice.
And once again, how many people on the left right now are cheering on Ukraine and are totally happy with anything Ukraine does against Russia? But I just looked it up. There have been thousands of Russian civilians killed in the Russia-Ukraine war. No one's shedding any tears for the Russian civilians that have been killed in the counterattacks that Ukraine has put on Russia. Nobody gives a fuck because it's not part of the narrative.
Yeah, it's narrative. This is we're like in a battle of narratives right now. It's narrative warfare. And I just the points of fact that people on the left are building their narrative on is just, it's like building on sand. It's a house of cards. I don't understand how that narrative is sustaining itself once you even glance into the facts. I'm catching up on some social media. So y'all feel free to chat.
Okay. How's it going, Joshua?
Not much.
Did you make it back?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I made it back yesterday.
Do you have
I'm very
any
glad to hear that.
any juicy updates for us?
Yeah, Gaza's done. That's no longer a thing.
It's done. What does that mean?
It means you can the only way the Gaza Strip ever remains to be anything like that, what it was prior, would require the Palestinians to turn on Hamas, which, believe it or not, it is actually a thing attempting to happen. A few people are like capturing Hamas fighters, things like that. It's just in such a small proportion that it doesn't make much difference. That's the only way that Gaza Strip will ever remain to be, or will ever exist as it was prior. Short of that, U.S. troops are actually already in the tunnels. They've been in the tunnels apparently for like, I think somewhere around 8-9 days.
What's the tunnel?
So
Is that tunnels under Gaza?
yeah, all of that shit under there is generally what the real problem is. This is a replication of like Vietnam War. It was hard enough to get open conflict on this, out on the land. It's a different story when you have to go down and dig these people out. So I believe that's why Israel's not doing like a direct action currently. I have no idea what's the holdup, but other than it's the problem, a lot of problems with the tunnel system. I do believe the plan is effectively to starve them out. I mean, that's really what this is going to boil down to. This is why I was kind of a little confused at Young's position here on empathy, because what they're generally asking for is actually going to cause more harm to civilians. Like the idea of empathy is like, oh, well, we have to save these people. So there's such an insane amount of pressure on pretty much all governments involved to do something about it. But there's nothing to do that's safe, that doesn't come with an elevated risk to whoever carries out. An example, one person proposed an idea of like knocking a portion down of the wall, the Palestinian wall, setting up a tent city just outside, and then screening people as they were coming in, which is really just started with identification and they continue the screening in. The problem with it, or the major concern with this, is it creates like this bottleneck, and that they were afraid like suicide bombers would come in and use it as like an attack method, which would just end up killing a bunch of, it would kill a bunch of civilians plus, whoever, guards were there. There's really no effective way to deal with it. So the only option that's somewhat safe for Israel is going to be what they call a starve out method, which is basically just isolate them, keep the water off, keep the which they did get a convoy of supplies in. I don't recall what was exactly in it, but it wasn't a lot. But generally, that's kind of the idea, is to kind of starve them out systematically.
Does that include all the civilians?
It's going to include them because they can't differentiate between the two.
I thought they turned the water back on.
They do it every once in a while. Like I said, it's enough to kind of keep it somewhat maintained, but only in specific regions, specifically in the south, things like that.
Do you think this is the best tactical course they could take? Or are they trying to do the best they can to minimize?
I don't think it's a question of minimizing harm on the other side. I think it's a question of trying to minimize the amount of harm on your own side. If you want to go in and clear it out, if you want to go in and basically try to find some type of system, which they've got facial recognition going in, they've got like all kinds of weird systems that they're working on for like the screening process. But to do it, there's high risk. And I think that's kind of what they're focusing on, is they don't want to put any resources that are going to get themselves harmed.
So Israel's looking more out for Israel than for Gaza.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously. But it should be that way. That's the thing. Like if you're in a conflict with one side, you're supposed to care about your own side more than the
this
other.
is not the first war of aggression that they've had to defend themselves against.
Gaza is not even the thing now. It's actually West Bank is what they're kind of focusing on.
What's happening there?
There's conflict in West Bank. There is definitely conflict. It's just overshadowed by everything that's going on in Gaza. It's kind of like a magic trick. Everybody's watching what one hand's doing and not so much the other. Hezbollah, let's see here, like some of the militia names. Hezbollah. Another one would be Islamic Jihad. That's actually literally a militia name. There's like a whole mess load. There's at least like half a dozen. They're all attempting certain things in with West Bank. They're trying to get involved. So
this is coming from the Palestinians in the West Bank side, not Israel.
Not exactly. So this is where things get a little shady. This would be like basically civilians, or I'm sorry, militias that are stationed or housed within, say, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and what they're doing is they're going into, or they're either doing attacks from the borders of those nations, or some are starting to seep in, or apparently they believe that there's a huge amount of numbers that might be seeping into West Bank.
From the
But
other Arab
there's
nations.
yes, from the other Arab nations. That's really where
So
the
this is
problem is.
another Arab war of aggression against Israel. It's not limited to Gaza.
Yeah, it's not limited to Gaza, and it intentionally never was. Now, what Israel's interest in dealing with it is they're going to end up having to take over the West Bank as well. I don't know why they haven't scaled up, because the more time they take, the longer they give the militia groups a chance to kind of like dig in, entrench themselves. This is problematic, and we're not talking about like you think Hamas is big in Gaza. It's not really that scaled. You're talking about like on say like Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad. We're talking about 700,000 people, fighters, not civilians, fighters. That people are just streaming in through these. This is a huge number.
Why are we not hearing about it, or are we? And I'm just not.
Because the attacks, for one, the attacks aren't large scale. So when let's see here, Hamas itself has an estimated about 150,000 rockets, which pales in comparison to Hamas's like 10,000 that they had supposedly had access, which I think they fired off like 7,000 to 8,000, somewhere in there. This is like absolutely nothing. We don't know. They haven't fired off in scale. That they fired off a couple dozen rockets here and there. Nothing significantly, like they've kept it. They managed to keep it under the scale of Hamas, but it's enough to be of concern considering the number of fighters they have.
Something I think it was actually something Bridget Fedesi mentioned in her thing earlier, was that the fact that Hamas is still continuing firing rockets at Israel and into Israel and killing civilians on that side, but no one's mentioning that. All anybody cares about is the fact that, Israel's carpet bombing Gaza. Well, Hamas continues to attack Israel. It hasn't stopped. It's not like this is just like a one-sided conflict at this point, I think it's fucking ridiculous. The media just wants to cover what it wants to cover. I'm just asking you, Joshua, is that accurate?
It would see. Well, the media has always been that way, right? They're going to cover whatever narrative's popular that people want. That's not a media problem. That's a what people want problem.
Yeah, but the media's responsibility is to give us the truth.
You can claim people have. Yeah, you can claim people have a responsibility to do a thing, but it doesn't mean that they actually do the thing.
Are there any sources out there that are doing the thing that you can recommend?
Probably. I wouldn't know any of them off the top of my head, though.
That's sad.
Like one of the sorry.
I'm more curious again. It's the empathy thing that's the concerning part to me, that people have like this. Like none of these type of tactics are new. It's
right.
literally identical tactics from say Vietnam era, right? This is kind of where we fucked up in Vietnam, is we allowed cameras in, and Ho Chi Minh was smart enough to allow people to bring the cameras in and watch, here's dead babies on the side of the street and in the jungle kind of thing. Look at what all these evil people do, and they're killing women and children. That's the tactic on that side.
And the woke are experts at weaponizing compassion in people that are vulnerable to that.
Sure.
That's what I see happening even in my own circles. Like they must think I'm a monster because I don't really prioritize the civilians and the innocents the way they do. But I just know that you never do that in a war.
You can't if the tactic is okay. So like the definition of a terrorism is generally a group that uses a specific action of a threat of fear to change a policy. So the only how do you stop such a thing, right? If you give in and negotiate, you're just going to come back and cause that same tactic to apply to the next policy, right? There's no end to it. This is kind of where I'm on this side where Israel and probably a couple others need to just get involved and literally wall up the entire border of Israel and literally use the threat of a gun at the wall. Say, look, you come here, you're going to lose your country. Meaning Israel would then have to actually deal with direct conflicts with at a nationalistic level from Jordan, Syria, or Lebanon. Now, keep in mind, the United States has a heavy interest in this because we want to directly attack Iranian assets. Which is generally going to be like Hezbollah. That's like the same thing as us attacking Iran. We can't like attack Iran directly. We can only go after their assets. Otherwise, it's a war declaration.
Is this enough of a pretext to do so?
It would. I don't know. That I don't know. I know U.S. is looking for an excuse to do it. I don't technically think they need one, but they seem to be. There were a lot of threats issued. They literally warned Lebanon. I don't know about Jordan specifically. I wasn't there, but Lebanon. They literally threatened Lebanon and said, "We are attacking these assets. We either want your permission or this is going to just turn really ugly." There wasn't really any medium ground for negotiation. It was just a threatening system. So Lebanon as a government is kind of like stuck in the middle. Plus we're talking hundreds of thousands of protesters that actually want Lebanon to get involved. So you got the people on one side, you got the American government on another side, and then you got the Lebanese government in the middle. And
they want people to get involved against.
No, Israel? They want to stay out of it. They actually want to stay out of it. Well, they lose power. It's a losing. Either you fight us, or you fight your own people. Which one would which one do you select? It's a real shitty position. And we're, as best as I can tell, we're not exactly backing down because it's in our best interest to hit those assets. And when I say hit them, I mean, there's something like, I'm only aware of, or at least at the table, what was thrown down on the table as a threat was, I think it was roughly around 6,400 targets, which these are like, when I say targets, they're things like militia depots, weapon caches, training facilities. They're things that they believe that Hezbollah uses. There's all kinds of weird stuff, right? But that's just or anyway, I think it was like 6,400 targets listed on a map. And what was said was these are half the targets that we wanted. So apparently that implies that there's a lot more there than at least what was said. Maybe they don't want them to know. That would be a good military tactic. You wouldn't want them to know all of the targets. But that was the threat that was levied at Lebanon.
So this is going to drag on for a while then, and possibly
it's going to drag on for sure. And it's going to be a little bit bigger than Israel per se. Now, escalation might be a different story. I don't know how to describe that. It depends on if the government, like say Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan, decide that they're just going to have to back their people and hope for the best. But what comes with that is again, replication of history. If the government backs their own people and the idea of attacking Israel, then we'll end up attacking specific assets within the government. We'll literally start cruise missiling, their senators, their ambassadors. We'll start cruise missiling their homes, kill them in their sleep.
Dang. So they're gonna lose either way. They just have to choose which way.
Yeah,
to go.
this is the weird part. This isn't really like the government's say in it. They don't actually, in my opinion, they don't have the control that is perceived. So all of this ideology is coming back to bite them in the ass. So like this anti-Israel ideology is a big problem for at least for sure Lebanon and Jordan. Syria, I don't think is a big player. They don't have the resources to actually fight anything.
What's the best thing that we as Americans here in our country can do? Like
Depends on
ordinary citizens like us, just stay out of it, or
yeah. None of this seems to require, at least nothing I've heard, requires a huge amount of troops. So technically, at best, right now, all we're really looking at is a lot of cruise missiles going off. We lost 4 drones in Iraq. Apparently, we were attacking air bases there. Like we've lost some assets. Of course, it's like a radio control airplane with a bomb on it, right? As civilians, no, I don't even think we even have to worry about like a draft or anything like that. Most of this is going to be basically bombing the shit out of people.
okay, and just sit back and watch it on social media.
Yeah, it's pretty much going to be grab your popcorn, sit back, and watch the shit show. Now, what comes from that, that's a little bit scary because usually if you're going to bomb the living shit out of people, civilians are definitely going to get hurt because just like how Hamas basically has their, they have weapon caches like stored in residential areas. So does Hezbollah. So does all of these. It's just, in other countries, specifically like in Lebanon and Jordan. That's going to come with a consequence. People are going to be, this is why they're protesting us. This is why they're attacking our embassies and things like that, is because they know that, they definitely know we want to get involved, like even at a civilian level. They know we want to get involved. Might be a little misdirected to think that, we're protecting Israel. But the reality is I don't think our interest is so much into Israel. It's really more into, we want a piece of these malicious asses, and it's because it's a drain on Iranian funds.
Mm-hmm.
We specifically want a piece of Iran, and the only way we're going to get it is going after those assets. Militarily, it would be in our best interest. Economically, and through the sanction system, that would be in our best interest to do it. Morally, I don't know. Like, see, that's a weird thing to me because war and morals to me are just
Right.
completely different things.
I completely agree. I don't understand this concept of like moral war. Like it's like there's some moral way to commit atrocities. I don't understand. I mean, they may not be atrocities really, but you know what I mean? But to somebody it's an atrocity, no matter what. And when you're defending or attacking or no matter what, you're going to end up killing someone that you probably didn't mean to kill. The only real difference is I do see a moral distinction between bombing and, sending in paratroopers that individually go in and execute people. I think there's a big moral difference in that, being that the paratrooper way is way morally worse, and I mean, it sucks when that bombs indiscriminately kill people and children and puppies and babies and everything. I completely understand why people are upset about that, but I do think it's worse than whenever the Hamas or whoever sends in actual troops that go in and execute innocent people. Like, human beings making the choice. They see a baby, they see a woman, they see an innocent person, and they pull the trigger and or rape them or whatever the fuck they do. I think that's worse, and I don't think people seem to understand that from their moral standpoint.
That's actually the low grade part. The original plans were to, of course, this was before this even took off. Was the idea was to burn everything out. We don't actually use napalm anymore, but or you're not supposed to, anyways. It still is used, but what they wanted to do originally was going with incendiary devices and literally burn everything out. Just start at the north and using incendiary burning method to just burn everything through. That would push all of the people in toward the south. And then the north would come in and just basically mop up whatever wasn't, whatever didn't die of asphyxiation inside the tunnels, because it's supposed to design to take all the oxygen and suck it clean out of the tunnels. That was the original method. That's the that's the hardcore worst thing you could possibly do from a moral standpoint. Because nobody has choice. They're going to have to run from the fire. If there's anything left in the tunnels, it's pretty much going to suffocate them one way or the other, or it's going to attempt to do most of it, depending on how the tunnel structure is. That would be the worst, and that's no longer been on the table. So if there's like any request for Israel to not be so aggressive, it's already happened.
So they are being humane.
Yeah, they have like a hell of a lot worse options to do. So this is why napalm is technically illegal to use. I just don't agree with it. I believe that to me, the idea is it's basically saying like a flamethrower is illegal. Whether you have a dude with a super soaker that's filled with with gasoline on their back, and they're going in and doing it by hand versus it being dropped from the air, to me doesn't make much of a difference.
Yeah,
so I don't agree with it.
I personally think, even though I think the idea of war crime says it's worse to do it from the air, but I think it's worse the other way. I think that puts it on individual people making the choices to murder innocent people, whereas, I mean, we literally can't know. I mean, I know it seems worse on one hand. I mean, it's a really hard distinction to make. I don't understand the concept of war crimes, basically. I don't understand, like, why there are things... I mean, war itself is a crime on every level, right? I mean, anytime you're killing someone, even a soldier, it's still murder, right? I mean, but we don't see it because we have these things like... I mean, like... I understand on some degree, like whenever like we put like the Nazis on trial at Nuremberg and stuff like that, but there's a part of me that just kind of like it creates a dissonance in my brain that I can't quite get past. You know, it's like, well, yeah, they killed people. It was war, right? I mean,
yeah, the concept of war crimes are usually to punish the losing side, not the winning side.
Exactly.
I just don't like the rules.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of think if we're going to prosecute people for war crimes, it should be for both sides.
A lot of let's see here. A lot of Hamas, a lot of their upper staff have either been killed. Some have actually even been captured. I was actually shocked to find out because I knew that there was the media had said that 2,000 troops were being stationed there, basically on naval craft. Officially, they were claiming that they were going to be used as support roles, which is actually kind of more common. Usually, like if we bring in equipment, somebody has to teach them how to use it, you know, all that kind of thing. And then there's also the medical support. We're really good at like flying in and getting like people out, or you know, getting a medical treatment and transporting them out. Like that's a big thing that we do. And I thought originally that was like it. Just apparently there's also what's included is actually the tunnel combat. Apparently we have support roles for that. I'm not really a military person. I was shocked to find that one out, because when I found out that we actually had troops on the ground, I was like, I thought we weren't doing that, and then realized, yeah, we kind of, you almost have to. It's just part of the support role system. Israel's bragging like they're going to use robots. They just don't have enough of them. Not for that tunnel system.
Robot dogs.
It's basically like you know, in Vietnam, like they had that term tunnel rats. It was that asshole that went in with a flashlight and a revolver. Like the best you couldn't go in with a rifle. It was too small. So instead of that being a person, they have these robots that can go in and basically somewhat clear it. They just don't have enough. Those tunnel systems are massive. We're not talking about like, you know, a few hundred. We're talking about thousands. Somebody had tried to measure it up as a thing is 300 miles worth of tunnels.
Oh my god, damn.
Why
So, I mean,
why do all these tunnels exist in the first place? Like, what's with the tunnels?
Some claim that it was intentionally put there. Some parts of it just comes with the infrastructure for cities. You know how like you have sewage and things like that.
Sure, yeah.
Maybe some of it's slightly modified for that, but I mean, yeah, take your pick.
I'm just curious. I didn't. This is the first you're mentioning the tunnels is like the first I'm hearing about it. So I just didn't even know like what the tunnels were. If they were originally created as a warfare thing, or if it were sewers, or what they were. I just didn't know.
I don't know. Like the intention of why it was created. I absolutely no clue. If I was to give my opinion, it originally built as like an infrastructure for the city, like the same way New York systems got tunnels like crazy underneath their stuff. And then it was expanded to serve a purpose. And once you're down there, you can dig stuff out too. So, but that's just me guessing and speculating. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Well, thank you for the update. That's
For real.
more than I get from social media.
See, and I don't even think any of that stuff is really all that surprising. I guess we always knew that, you know, the U.S. and Iran were always at each other's throat. We're always taking digs at each other. If they're going to spend money, we want to destroy whatever that asset is to make them spend more. That helps actually with the sanctions on the country, puts more pressure on the country. So that's always been a thing, at least for the last 30 years. Definitely a thing that we did. I just didn't realize how many assets they had within just Lebanon and Jordan. Syria, I'm not entirely sure what they have there. I know they have a shit ton. I think it's more of an uncountable amount. So
Is
that's what
Iran
I'm
going to
saying.
get involved like we're involved?
Not directly. Turkey is a problem. Their navy is kind of, how to explain this one. So we have basically a naval blockade on Lebanon and Israel. You're not getting through. The only ships that get through are the ones that are allowed. I don't know exactly who controls you know, who gets in and who gets out. It could be Israel, and you know they dictate one way or the other, and we're just the gatekeepers. But Turkey brought their navy in too. They're a little pissed off. They want to get involved. They actually trying to bring in troops, which that's why we're there. There's nothing gets through. So if there's any attempted force there, then we get into a naval conflict with Turkey. I highly doubt that's going to happen. I think Turkey is just kind of showboating, but they do have naval ships in the area. They even have troop transports in the area, supposedly have troops in them. If it's the case that they try to put in there, we'll end up firing on their ships and a bunch of Turkish troops are going to drown in the Mediterranean. I just don't really, I don't see how Turkey thinks they're going to be able to like land any of those troops. I just don't see how that's going to happen. So I personally think Turkey's showboating, but their showboating is public. Iran's doing what Iran always does, talking a bunch of good game. We want to go in. They can't. They actually can't move troops that far. So all they can do is send supplies. They did have one ship that was bringing in a delivery to Hezbollah that was turned around. I don't know why we didn't actually fire on that ship. That ship should have been fired on. They had munitions on the deck that was visible, which implies that we're kind of like allowed to, you know, take over that ship. They should have fired on it, and they didn't. They just ended up turning it around. That one kind of pissed me off. We had lost an
Are they
opportunity
just being
there.
cautious?
It's possible. Like I said, it's very much possible. We do have 2 aircraft carriers in there, and probably the priority would be to basically protect them at all costs. So you don't want to make them a target. It's very possible. But I don't personally believe that Iran has the capability of, like, if they wanted to declare war and they wanted to attack somebody outward, that they don't have the resources for that. They don't have transport carriers. They can't move large scale troops. They can only use those militia, which that's what they've always been funding. Of course, now the militia is a different story. You don't know where they just crawl out of the woodwork wherever things pop off. We've had a couple of our bases attacked within Iraq. That was Hezbollah. That was Hezbollah and I think 2 other groups. So we've been hit here and there, but it's just small scale shit.
Okay, well, I'll
Oh, it's
don't-
also apparently a really bad. It's also a really bad time to travel if you're a U.S. citizen. You go into the wrong country and they think you're American. You then become a target.
yeah, I feel that way anytime, so I'm not going anywhere.
Well, apparently there's an escalation. If you look at like these Palestine-Israel protests, they're literally everywhere. I mean, just Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. That was hundreds of thousands of people. But you can turn on like France and Germany, see them on TV. They've got protests like literally everywhere.
Is that gonna make a difference at all, or are they just wasting their time?
In Europe, not a damn thing. In North America, not a damn thing. The protests don't mean shit. The problem, though, comes in with neighboring countries. You've got 300,000-400,000 people protesting. That's a problem. Like, if you can distribute weapons to them, you now have an army.
Oh,
Yeah, that one's the concerning one. So if you could imagine 300,000 people running at Israel, yeah, it doesn't matter whether they're well trained. It's just enough of them that it's going to hurt something.
Yeah, I think a lot of the protests are obviously probably pretty facile, but I don't know. I think it's bizarre how these protests seem to pop up all over the world, seemingly coordinated. I don't know how they're coordinating it, but same thing happened with BLM. You know, after George Floyd, like there's worldwide protests, and it was like in places where that's not even an issue. Like why were people in European countries protesting police brutality in America? You know, it didn't make no sense.
Emotions. People jump on their moral high horse and they, oh, fuck it, we want to.
It just didn't make sense to me why they were protesting. Like, who were they protesting against over there? You know,
they were just trying to signal solidarity with what was happening in America, and it's signaling.
Sure.
Yeah, virtue signaling usually comes to the people that have way too much free time on their hands.
Especially George Floyd during COVID, everybody was looking for a reason to be out.
Yeah. And that was the only thing you were allowed to go outside the house for, right? Was a protest. So
yeah.
It's always good to get like a really straightforward, like no bullshit take about this stuff from somebody that actually knows something. So thank you, Joshua. Really appreciate it.
Like I said, get your popcorn out. Let's watch the shit show. This will actually be kind of interesting. The question is when will it pop off? I'm really curious when it's going to pop off with like Lebanon. Jordan they'll be on the chopping block too. I just don't know much about Syria. I'm pretty sure they have the bulk of the militia assets. but everything that's coming out there, nothing. Nobody's saying anything. I know we've got a lot of information. Nobody brought it up at any of the meetings. So I had no clue. Like, they wouldn't even talk about it.
Is there a chance that this will de-escalate at all, or
Sure. Yeah, well, now if you're talking about on the U.S. side, the de-escalation comes down
global
to
conflict? Israel will get Hamas or do whatever with Gaza,
Uh,
and then everybody will go back to their normal state, or is
well,
it's going to pop
there-
off?
there's
no
a-
matter what?
yeah, there's a separation between the two things. Okay, so these Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan, that's not an Israeli thing. It only becomes an Israeli thing is if their civilians decide they're so pissed off that they want to get involved and then just start charging at the border, right? Then it becomes an Israel thing. Short of that, it's purely an us thing. This is our interest that we want a part of it. So it has to be understood. This is the United States trying to get involved. It's in our best interest technically to do so. We get a real big advantage out of it. Everything else that happens on that side of the border or on the Israeli side of the border, that's just them. So our interests overlap. They're not identical.
And all we're doing currently with it is helping them in these tunnels.
Very military assets.
Yeah, and then the Navy ships.
Yeah. The Navy has a two-part there. One, it's pretty much okay. So when we do negotiations with another country, everybody thinks diplomacy is like everybody sits around at the table and they just randomly sit around and come to what they believe is the most.
Uh-oh, why'd you cut out? Or did I cut out?
He cut out.
He cut out?
Yeah.
Damn it.
I'm sure he'll be back. Anyway, very interesting though. It's not a happy topic, that's for sure. The whole thing makes me feel kind of just tired and exhausted. I'm just like,
Well, hopefully today will be the last day we have to spend on it because I've linked that video. I think it addresses everything that I have to address about it. I can just refer people to that.
fair enough. I mean, I'd love to still keep getting updates from Joshua because he seems to really actually understand the situation better than anybody in the media does. So
He'll be right back, he says.
and welcome to Sarah out there in the comments.
Yeah, Sarah's here. Hi. Good to see you. You can hop on too if you want. Anybody can. I don't have a blacklist so far.
None of those trolls dare come over here. They know we'll just ignore them.
Yeah, they don't come. There's nothing for them over here. What are they going to do? All right, here he is.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You were telling us
So-
about negotiations sitting around the table.
Yeah, so like, okay, how this stuff takes place. Everybody thinks America like just comes to the table and we're all happy, honky dory, get along, and we're just looking for peace. It's complete bullshit. All negotiations come with an extreme amount of leverage. That's the thing. There's a leverage, one, to get them to the table to communicate. Then there's another leverage that's usually a little bit more extreme, designed to, you're either come across as like an ultimatum. It'll be like, this is a crude version of it, but it'll be, you have two options. You can either do this or we're going to do this, and it's going to cause these type of problems, and we're not going to let up kind of thing. Negotiations with us is not like a very, it's not civil, it's not polite. I've been to very few that are ever even nice to each other. They'll scream, curse, kick like kindergartens, just as anything else. They just use different wording, right? That's it. So this idea of de-escalation, yes, it's possible, but it's more likely going to be the case that our interest would change, and that would be the thing that would trigger it. And I don't know what that would be. That would be something else, you know, that it's very possible that we have other interests. I just don't know what those would be. But the things that could make things pop off, that would be a different thing. That would be like, you know, there's a dozen things that could easily turn this ugly.
So right now
It-
it's just business as usual. More or
Yeah,
less.
yeah. For us, it's business as usual. If you're asking about like our involvement in with Israel specifically, right now, I would say that U.S. troops are being used in support roles. This is not an abnormal thing. In all conflicts, we always do this. So, like, say if we send them anti-aircraft machinery, we also send the troops that train, you know, their staff how to use the damn thing and stuff like that. So they're right there with it. So it could be the case like some aircraft would come by and try to take a pop shot out of it and get one of our guys killed. That could possibly escalate, you know. It's just all kinds of weird things. But I do know, and I wasn't aware of it until I'd gotten there, that we do have troops involved with the tunnels. Could be and there's a whole mess load of reasons why that could be. We have experience with dealing with tunnels, aka the Vietnam War. We have experience with negotiations because they actually believe that the hostages that they still have are down in those tunnels. There's booby trapping systems. There's like all kinds of stuff that, you know, we would have a lot of expertise in dealing with. And that's why we would have those support roles. I'm not familiar, or I'm not sure of how many numbers are involved. I just know that we're down there.
Okay.
We're just not like in an infantry capacity, right? We're not dumping off, you know, 10,000 troops and letting them just, you know, shoot anything that's in sight on the street. That's what we're not doing.
Right. And when's the last time the U.S. even did that? I know we had some ground troops, like what was that movie, Black Hawk Down? It was about like some of the conflicts in Africa and stuff like that, but we don't have.
Yeah, that term support role is really vague. I hate the term because it's so vague, but like I said, it could be anything. We put troops on the ground in like, well, so like Osama, that was 2 helicopters worth of troops. You just go in there. It's like they're supposedly supposed to be arresting them. That happens quite often. Now they call that a support role too, but I don't know what the hell that means. When's the last time? Happens all the damn time. How big do we put troops in? Well, that's usually going to be like a declared war. I don't even see us like laying a war declaration on. Well, so it wouldn't be in our interest to declare war on, say, Lebanon and Jordan. One, because that would take the priority out of the executive branch. We can't actually do that. Right, that has to come from Congress, but we can put troops up a country's ass for 90 days with no need for Congress. You don't need a war declaration for that. So if we can do enough,
like thing like regulated like that.
yeah. So I mean, if we want to fire off, we can do as much damage as we want using military capacity against a country.
It's like we have a 90-day war return policy. It's like you can try out the war for 90 days without, you know, really committing to it altogether. It's so weird.
Pretty much. I really don't think that's going to happen. I say that's probably not going to happen because I know for sure Lebanon, like I am 100% sure, convinced that they don't want any piece of us, but we do want a piece of them. And if I'm just talking about government to government, yeah, they want to avoid us at all costs. I don't know how they're going to deal with their civilian population. Jordan, I believe that one I'm less sure of, but that's because I wasn't there. But Jordan, I believe, would be something very similar. Syria doesn't give a shit, and they couldn't even afford to get into a fight if they wanted. But unfortunately, that I believe, my opinion is, that's where the bulk assets are. So war declarations, not very. I can't see any reason why it would explode that grandiose. There's no reason executive branch would lose all their authority if they did that. That would it'd just be a whole different monster to deal with, and it would cost too much to attack their assets. Like if you go that path, it's kind of like trying to say you have a building, weapons, munitions, right? You really want to spend the least amount of money to destroy that thing, right? So it's a whole different story of dropping, say, a $30,000 bomb on a shed that happens to hold a bunch of rockets that, versus that's one cost versus sending about 10,000 troops to go in and do it that direction's a whole lot more of a cost. I think the U.S. is a little bit more efficient than that. We might not like the idea of dropping a $10,000 bomb on a $20 tent, but that's cheaper than the alternative.
Man, war is complicated.
I don't know. For some reason, this makes me feel better about the situation. The Israel.
I guess it depends. Like if it's all about Israel
do it now, or some kind of parameters on it.
That one's a little weird. That one's a little weird to me, anyways. Like the idea of parameters. Everybody has different interests. Israel has different interests than the United States. The United States executive branch doesn't have the same interest as the War Department, the Department of Defense. They don't have the same interest. Like everybody has a different interest. Department of State doesn't have the same interest. Intelligence gathering services, they don't have the same interest. There's all of these people involved, or all these different groups involved that don't have the same interest. Not even the militias, the different militias, like say Hezbollah versus Hamas versus Islamic Jihad, they don't have identical interests. We all just have overlap interests.
But is there like a core interest, the well-being of the United States ultimately, or something like that? Or do their private interests get sacrificed to that?
I believe it's mostly private interest.
Oh, yikes.
I mean, it's economics for one. So example, let's just say you have a country, AKA Iran, that you sanction the crap out of them for 30, 40 years. And you're really trying to drain them of every little quarter, nickel, and dime that they have, right? But they've also have other means of making money and revenue, and then they use that revenue to go off into as a third-party actor in another country. You go after their assets, you reset it, causes them to spend more. Well, they either have to spend more to maintain it, or they have to give up the asset in general, which in this case would be their influence. So that has both. It's arguably, but it has both private and we'll call it military interest. I would claim that the private interest is a little bit higher.
Well, yeah, I'm with Chris. This is complicated.
So
it sounds
it's a lot.
From a plot perspective if I were fictionalizing it, but I don't know if I'd want to work in that environment.
It's a lot. It's a lot of moving parts. You just represent your team is really what it comes down to. And in this case, your team is, whatever department you're working for.
Is Biden the man at the top coordinating all
Fuck
of it?
no, not even close.
Okay. That makes me feel
Yeah,
a little better.
That would even be the case within, even if it was Trump, it still wouldn't be at the top. That's just not how that works.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the president's nothing more than a figurehead. It hasn't been much different than that for a long time.
Yeah.
It's just
You don't get-
they're electing for someone for president. It's basically like electing a scapegoat.
Pretty much. I mean, don't get me wrong. The dude's got some authority, but it's just not what it's not nearly as grandiose as I guess we want to think it is.
Yeah, the president's cabinet and the team, and especially those elements of the government that remain steady from administration to administration, those are the ones that really pull all the strings, I would have to imagine.
I guess from the Israeli side, this is actually really good news for them because, like I said, they can't help but come out on top. Whatever it is their desire, whatever their goal is, just by proxy, they're going to come out on top. They actually can't lose. The worst thing that could happen to them is when they come out the other end of this conflict, either a good portion of the world's going to hate them, or a good portion of the world's going to be, nonchalant about it, like, oh well, that was conflict.
Why did Hamas attack in the first place? I don't understand like, they had to know this.
One of their leaders was on a radio station. God, I can't remember who it was. That was That was planned for like 2 years. They had gone through 2 years worth of planning to pull that off. That's what the dude admitted to. One of their like talking representatives. Shit, I have to pull up.
They were going to take down the state of Israel?
No. The plan was never to actually like win a direct conflict with Israel. Was to basically incite other Muslims throughout the rest of the world to act. They don't particularly care about, who dies, who lives, that kind of thing. It's more something else, some type of ideology. Did that happen,
or like did they miscalculate and now they realize they're fucked, or are Muslims being activated?
Well, Hamas doesn't care if their own troops get fucked, basically. So it's kind of like saying, like,
as an organization, like existentially, now they are fucked.
No, their organization's not even remotely fucked. They're all over they've got headquarters at least in a dozen different countries. Hamas ain't going nowhere. Well, we're not destroying.
I thought that was the goal.
No. Well, we'd like to, but then we'd end up having to like talk to at least 9 other countries for permission to bomb people on their country. It's not going to happen. Hamas ain't going anywhere.
So Hamas was created as a terrorist militia type organization in the first place. How were they even ever eligible for political office? I mean, was it just like the person who got elected was just a Hamas member or something? Like, how does that even happen? Because they keep saying that, Hamas is the governmental power there and they were elected, but in what way? I mean, how does that even work?
Basically, okay, so imagine you have like a small plot of land, right? Let's just call it a couple 100 acres, right? Dude walks in. Oh, there's already some civilians. There's people living there. Dude walks in the door and says everything the people want to hear. They say, "Oh, hey, here, you're our leader." That's how it works.
Okay. I mean, I just didn't understand. Like, I mean, so it's like in this country, it's like, okay, say if Hamas was running someone for president of the United States or something, that one person could be elected, but we wouldn't be electing Hamas as our leadership. I just don't understand if elections are just completely different over there or what. I was just confused about that.
Is Hamas a political party?
That depends on who you ask. If you ask the people in Gaza, the answer is yes. If you ask people, say, in the United States, the answer is no. They're a terrorist organization, like literally listed on the OFAC as a terrorist organization. So take your pick. Depends on who you're asking.
Were they terroristic before they got elected? And then the terrorists.
Yes, they were on the terrorist watch.
When they were on the terrorist, they were known terrorists even then.
Yeah, they were. Well, they were terrorist organizations. Shit, I have to go back and look at the OFAC and find out what year they were put on there, because that I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know. I'd have to look. Sorry, I should know that, but I don't. The reason I don't know is because Hamas is such an insignificant speck of it's just an insignificant speck of shit. The little black dot on chicken shit. It doesn't mean anything, right? Like they're absolutely nothing and nobody within the region. Hezbollah is a hell of a lot bigger of a contender for us to deal with, and we're not even entirely sure they're the only dominating group. There's other dominating militia groups that are in the same sphere. We call them terrorist groups. They won't, but we do. So, like, in Hamas they're nothing. They're just nothing.
Well, they were something 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. About the time they fired off those rockets and went after, they were something, and they're pretty much, at least within Gaza, they're going to be eradicated. The vast majority, I would say, a good portion of their military wing leaders, they're dead or captured. Now the problem is now you got their political wing. This again. If Young is so empathetic to Palestinians, he wants to call them civilians, wait till he learns what 10 cities are. That's going to be real ugly. Because if they think that Israel's just going to, like, when they're finished clearing out and think, we've got to keep in mind they've got a really long list of people's names that they believe are within the Hamas, at least within Gaza, within their leadership roles, whether it's the military wing, whether it's the political wing. They have I call it a shit list. Some people could call it a kill list. And it's their people who they want, like, gone. Now, for them to go and find all of these people, one, they have to make sure that none of them escape to Egypt, which there's no way of guaranteeing that. But then they have to take all of these civilians, these 2-point-something million civilians that are left alive, and go through and screen each one of them before they can, like, turn them loose, whether it be turn them loose back into Gaza to reoccupy or, resettle or whatever, or turn them loose into the rest of Israel. They're going to sit in tent cities for at least a minimum of a year to go through that screening process. You can bet your ass facial recognition, DNA sampling, like, you can bet your ass it's going to, hell, I wouldn't even be surprised if anal probing wasn't on the list. These people are literally going to get the shit screened out of them. And that's just within Gaza. They're going to end up doing the same thing to West Bank.
Oh, West Bank too?
Yeah, Israel's not going to stop with this Gaza bullshit. They have there's no incentivized reason for them to stop with Gaza. If they really sincerely want all of this bullshit to be over with, they have to settle West Bank too.
What's going to happen to Gaza and our West Bank politically? Will there just be new elections? Will there be a interim government?
I'm only speculating here, right? This one I don't know for sure because this would be outside of my field. But if I was in Israel's position currently, I wouldn't. There would be no. I can't think of something that would incentivize me to even look at the idea of a two-state solution. I actually fundamentally believe that is no longer an option ever again. Mm-hmm. Like, for anybody to even mention it would be laughable, because why would there?
Right. They literally have, like, they've crossed that line too many times, I guess.
Well, it's not even the concept of crossing the line, right? Like, even they're already actively going in and systematically, block by block, going to just basically lay waste, take control of everything. Why would you give that up?
Right. So they're going to take Gaza and West Bank now.
Gaza for sure. West Bank, I'm pretty sure. I'm basically less sure of Gaza. Gaza's gone. Like that's Israel now. That's 100% Israel. They're dominating the shit out of it. Like, even Egypt won't even they won't even open up their gates without permission from Israel. So, like, there's nothing, like, it's the idea of the control that's there. It's every aspect of Israel. West Bank, I'm a little less sure, but I'm pretty highly convinced that West Bank is next on the chopping block.
Well, I mean, they had their chance at how many years did they keep rejecting a two-state solution?
I don't remember when there was a first of a series of 3 negotiation processes. All were rejected, and I don't remember when the first one was. I'd have to go back and look. Yeah, if everybody wants to be pissed off, like the whole Palestine, oh, free Palestine, blame Hamas. Like Israel would not have taken that over. They would have had no incentivization to take that over had Hamas not attacked. So they played their little fuckery game and they gave it up. They cost them their homes. I'm done. I got no empathy for it.
Yeah.
But this would be like this. This would be like the same thing as the United States, right? Just imagine our government saying, you know what, fuck Russia, right? We're just going to go park a bunch of nukes over there and piss in their chili all left and right. Eventually the world gets pissed off and say, hey, you really can't behave this way. So the question then comes down to is how do you differentiate the difference between the American government and the American people? And you really, at that point, you couldn't, because it would be us that's basically giving the power to our government and our government doing willy-nilly whatever they want. It would then fall on us to clean up our own house.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we just drag ourselves to war, and whatever the consequences that happen from that, that's on us.
Yeah. I mean, that's what kind of what we did with Trump.
Yeah. I mean, across the board, we did it with the Native Americans. Like, we just said, fuck it, we're going to go in. Doesn't matter. This moral bullshit is strange to me. I don't like. I really don't understand.
Strange to me too, and I can only think it's maybe a generational thing. These are people half my age. They're young. Maybe when I was that age, I would have been. I didn't really follow politics or wars back then, but there was not really an event like this either. 9/11, the country seemed much more united than like we weren't infighting among other Americans on the morality of retaliating against ISIS.
Oh, well, to be fair, we're always that way. When it comes for America, this is why I this is why when people talk about like a civil war, I almost laugh because it's kind of a joke. It is so easy to draw Americans together. Bomb one of our buildings, kill a couple hundred of our people from a foreign source. You watch us just absolutely ass rape our recruiting offices. We would enlist in droves and get angry at the military for even trying to close the doors to stop us. We just wouldn't tolerate it. We're very easy to unite. It doesn't take
Why
much.
doesn't that carry over to Israel? And would that be true for this new generation?
Like what do you mean, like the Israel's being united?
Yeah, like if Israel shows the same fervor, then all of a sudden they're genocidal, aggressive, and they need to show restraint, and the poor children.
I didn't get a lot.
9/11 happened today, that there would be Americans taking that same position towards America. Did something change?
Yeah.
Actually?
Well, so with Israel, we also got to kind of understand it's kind of a new thing. Israel's not really like it's a new country. Like if we're talking about like countries that have been around, they're a very new thing. It's predominantly got a religious background, at least in formation of how its government operates. I'm not saying that the people are predominantly religious belief. I'm saying that there's Yeah. Well, you'd be surprised. But it's trying to kind of unite it, but it doesn't have it hasn't gotten to that point where it's gotten a history of them being used to having a state. So they're kind of adjusting with it, if that makes any sense. Call it like growing pains. It's like a new family. We're all kind of getting together. We've been together, or like a family that's been separated for 30 years. Now all of a sudden they're living in the same kind of house. Takes some adjusting to get used to. There's some I'm going to call them very extreme religious groups that don't believe that Israel should have basically tried to even establish a state.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of weird things, but the unity that comes in there, for the most part, it is there, at least in large numbers. But if you're talking about to the scale of like what the United States would be, just needs a little bit more time. I'd say like another 50 years of a standard of a state, if that makes any sense. Which they could probably, this will be a really good stance for them to do if they clear off Gaza, if they clear off West Bank, and they just basically solidify their borders, they probably have a really good chance at that. I believe their government wants it for sure.
So this might bring some unity to Israel then.
Yeah, like in 50 years. Like it's not like an overnight thing. It just sets that door and basically sets it for that pathway for them to, start, I don't know, doing their thing. But their neighbors never going to forgive them. There's always going to be that border clash with the neighbors.
That's how it's been since the beginning. It's been like that. That's the pattern down there. Their neighbors never wanted them there. There was always going to be something they would.
Yeah. Now, this is where the United States comes in place. Like, if it is the case that you wanted the bullshit with the neighbors to stop, this is where the United States makes really good hammer. You'd have to actually destroy enough people, and I mean literally maiming them enough that it leaves a good 3-generational consequence, or a lesson for 3 generations, saying, you touch this line, you're gonna get fucked up beyond belief. It has to be an extreme process.
Yeah.
That would be the only thing that could possibly even, and I'm not even so sure that's like, 100% guarantee. It would just be the closest thing to a possibility of teaching a lesson. Look, you fuck with your neighbors, it's going to hurt badly for generations.
What you said a minute ago, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say what you said a minute ago about how easy it is to get Americans to like kind of, unite on something. It makes me wonder. It makes me wonder if like the Watchmen, the graphic novel, the way it originally ends, not the movie one, but like the idea at the end of that novel is that they basically fake a assault or a attack from an alien.
Oh yeah.
They fake an alien attack.
It stops nuclear war.
It stops nuclear war, and like the entire Earth, unites around against the enemy of the aliens. It makes me wonder if they're actually planning on doing something like that with all the recent alien disclosure stuff and everything. If they're leading towards something like that, and it also makes me wonder, would that actually be a good idea?
I think
it would be one of the
be authentic to work, not manufactured.
Oh no, it could be manufactured, but the problem is the cost that comes with using it. You can lie one good time and, I don't know, put like, a hologram or something in the sky to scare the living shit. And it'll work really good one good time, right? But the moment that the people find out that you did that intentionally, it'll never work again, whether it's real or fake. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with all the conspiracy theorists going around now, they're not going to be able to pull off a convincing lie. Like what's the saying? You can fool some of the people some of the time, etc. They're not going to pull off a lie that's going to work on every single person. There's too many conspiracy skeptics.
All right.
And
I've always actually been curious about that when people talk about, well, Americans are so divided. Yeah, politically we have like a bunch of, crazy views sometimes, but at the end of the day, if you take like, the average, say, 28-year-old to 50-year-old, have a conversation with them and ask them sincerely, what would it take for you to pick up a gun and declare war on your U.S. citizen on, the next state over? What would that take for you to do? The vast majority of the population couldn't even conceive of the idea.
I don't. The young people, like the young progressives, seem like they hate America so much. I really have a hard time figuring out how much, like how to read that, how much to take it seriously, and how much of that would evaporate if they were faced with an actual national crisis and we needed their unity.
I'd claim when the shit hit the fan, like if. So the first time that their PlayStation got turned off, the first time their Xbox got turned off, and their electricity got turned off, and they were all of a sudden irrelevant on Twitter, right? Because no computer bullshit. Yeah, they changed their tune really quick. They're easier to break than they're easier to break than anything. It's your middle class. Those are the fuckers that are hard to break. Like if the government really wanted to go after the middle class, those are the scary bastards that you'd have to worry about the most. Because those bastards will barricade themselves in their house with their shotgun and just wait for you to come by and piss them off. Right? It's easy to break the youth. It's harder to break the middle class and the middle aged. Those are the scary bastards in the U.S. And I consider them the backbone of the U.S. We don't exist without them. That's the glue that holds everything together.
Yeah, I see that.
I wish they'd flex a little more lately.
Not in their nature. Go down the street with a 45-year-old or a 50-year-old, right? It's somewhere around in there, right? Walk down the street and just pay attention to their behaviors. They don't flex on anything. Not the car they drive, not how they associate with other people. They don't care until that moment that comes in where you cross some type of line of something that they do care about. And that goes from like literally 100 miles an hour in one direction of I don't care to 100 miles an hour of I'm going to kick the crap out of you because now you crossed a line. There's no middle ground there. It's just almost like a switch. It turns. It'd be like Chris. Take Chris, for example. He'd be a prime example, right? Most likely not going to care about what people say, what people do. Probably not going to care. Hey, he'll be maybe a little problem with his neighbor playing the music too loud. But let anybody just basically say something negatively toward his kid. See if he doesn't come out the damn door with a baseball bat, beating the crap out of anybody and everybody or anything he perceives as a threat.
Yeah.
This is why I say these are the people that are the most dangerous. Or they're the most dangerous if you need them, right? They're the thing that basically holds the country as to, the foundation, the glue of what makes things work. They're also the most dangerous people because if you fuck with them too much, it hurts really bad.
Yeah, I'm one of them too. Don't mess with the people I care about. That's when the email will come out.
It's just a thing. Now the question is with the youth. Caring, the word care is just a talking point. They like to use the word. They have no action behind it. Okay. Their idea of caring is, I'll get on Twitter and I'll put you on blast. Fuck off. Like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good. I feel better about not taking him as seriously.
Yeah. I don't think there's really a lot of threat from the Gen Z, yeah, but at the same time, I mean, it certainly is. I mean, whenever I was in my teens and 20s, though, I was never, I mean, I had problems with, I went through my phase when I had problems with capitalism and stuff like that, but I never hated the U.S., though. I was never, anti-America.
Never even crossed my mind
one
time.
It seems like a new phenomenon. I didn't know anyone who was anti-U.S. either.
But we didn't have all this propaganda we were exposed to either. We didn't have anarchy, anarcho-capitalism, and any of this stuff.
Well, to be fair,
social media. We didn't have Tumblr.
Yeah, but to be fair, we also didn't talk about politics either. Not at the young age that they're talking about politics now. That's actually kind of a new phenomenon for us. We were like, we don't give a shit right now, right? We want beer and chase women. There was always some other interest, right? This wasn't a thing.
Yeah,
and I don't believe it's a big number now, but it is a growing thing. So, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, like if you've got a bunch of people talking about politics, you're obviously then going to open the door for propaganda to come in. It just is the thing that it is.
And we weren't sitting in front of screens all day long either. That's where the propaganda is.
Flex too much. Flexed what, Miss Cash?
Older, wiser folks have flexed too much. I don't know. Not being one of the older, wiser folks, I don't know.
I consider my dad to be the older, wiser. He was born in 1926. I mean, to me, that's old, right?
Oh,
I don't
dang,
know.
that's like silent generation. That's your dad? You must have been born
Yeah,
late.
Yeah, I was what you call an oopsie baby. I was like, oh oops, it works.
Well, good for him.
Maybe just a lucky shot. We're like Chris. Chris seems to hit what he's aiming at. All them kids he's popping out. I'm a bad aim.
I've only got
I only
two.
got-
They're 16
I
years
only-
apart, so
Yeah, I only got lucky once.
How old is
Yeah.
yours?
3.
Oh, okay.
neither
Yeah,
of us
I'm-
were intentional either. We weren't trying to have a baby; it just happened. But we're very happy about it. I mean, we never were upset about it. But
I'll be fair. I think my wife was thinking about it. I wasn't.
Oh.
I mean, I was thinking, just not with that head.
right.
Well, hopefully you'll be a decent dad at least, because those are rare these days.
Uh,
Well,
Yeah, I
know.
don't know.
Sarah said she couldn't come on because it booted her out. So I don't know. What's up with that?
Oh, you clicked the link? There should be a link at the top of the comments that just brings you to the website.
I think well, he's definitely got the protective side of fatherhood down, so I think he'll be fine. I think he'll raise his kid right. So he certainly has the right I think the right kind of ethics to teach your kid with anyway. And I like to teach him about the way the world actually works instead of like fantasy
Chris
world.
He has to be present for the kid and mentor it. Like there's just certain things that boys need from their dads and male figures.
This is true. And see, like Chris has got a lot more faith in me than I have in myself, because like I'm still stuck at that whole like phase of I don't want to break shit or fuck shit up. Like that's what I'm more concerned about. It's a whole different story if you're running from something versus running to something. They're just two different things.
I don't know. I don't think kids are as hard to raise as everyone makes it out to be. But then again, like I've been very lucky with my kids. I have I mean, one of them's only 10 months old. But my 16-year-old, who she just turned 16 just a couple of days ago, and she's an amazing child. So I don't know. I just don't. I guess I'm just lucky. So I don't know what to say. I like my sisters that I helped raise. They were both really good kids too. They both turned out to be good, amazing people. So. I don't know. I love my kids, and like, and whenever you really love them and you really do your best to take care of them, I think they generally that comes through. You know, I think maybe it's just there's a lot of people out there that never figure out how to love their children or something, which I think is just weird. But it's like some of those things that I can't understand. You know, I try, and I'm really good. I have a really good sense of empathy, and I usually can put myself in someone else's place really well. But when it comes to like people that just don't connect with or love their children, stuff like that, I don't get that. I don't know. It's so instinctual and ingrained in me. I don't understand like where the disconnect is for people. But
Some people don't have that instinct,
yeah, I
and it
guess not.
depends on the kid too. You didn't have any problem children, so
Yeah.
it was easy for you. But if you have a problem child like me, we're not easy to raise.
You know, speaking of kids, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning. I gotta wake my kid up and get him ready for school. I'll be
okay.
back in a
All right,
little
man.
while.
All right, man.
Okay. We'll
good talking to you,
probably be
Joshua.
around. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
good. Thank you for all the information. That was very helpful.
Yeah, I'll be back if you guys have more questions or something. Think we missed something, just let me know. Just take a note and ask me again. I'll be back in a little while.
Okay.
right.
Well,
Don't have
take-
too much fun.
I doubt we will. All right. I got to pee too. We can do a little intermission if you want,
Sure. All right.
or you can take over for a sec.
I mean, I'll just talk to the chat, I guess, for a minute. I don't know.
Okay. All
Go
right.
ahead.
Take it away. I'll be right back.
All right. Yeah, I have trouble, Sarah, with trying. I tried to join the show the other day whenever I was at the hospital and then waiting room. I tried to join my phone. It's the first time I ever tried to do that, and it worked, but it didn't work well. It was very, very spotty. So it doesn't surprise me. I didn't kick me out, but like it probably was going to pretty quickly if I hadn't just left it myself. Like it's, I don't know. I don't think StreamYard is. I think Streamer is probably a little resource heavy for most people's phones right now, but I don't know if it depends on which kind of phone you have, I guess. I mean, my phone is a shitty phone, so let's see here. It's nice to know that we have a couple of including my wife, we have 3 female viewers right now, which is, that's considering that our show tends to be like, just me and Jeff and other white guys. Bye. Well, bye, Sarah. I just started on a new medication. It's making my brain fog that I've already have with the vertigo even worse. So I don't have a lot of things to say.
Oh, it gives you brain fog? That's the one for your blood pressure?
I already had brain fog. It doesn't seems to be making it worse. I'm having a harder time. Like last night, I tried to go. I was gonna go. Even trying to watching TML stream, machine live stream. I was having just so much trouble following anything that was going on. And maybe that was just the guest.
It was chaotic as usual. A lot of it wasn't even you.
Maybe, but like at the same time, like it's been chaotic in other weeks too, and it hasn't like been that difficult for me to like. I mean, I was having a hard time like getting my, like even following like a few seconds of it. I was there on the stream for a few minutes, and I kept getting dizzy and sick, nauseous, so I went ahead and laid down. I listened to it for a while, but I couldn't follow it. I don't know. I feel really. I'm having like I was doing good following everything with Joshua there for a little bit, but I kept like losing place of what was being said and stuff. I don't know. I'm sure it'll probably even out. It's probably like not a lot of times side effects like this are temporary when you're getting adjusted to the medication. So I'll just see. But tomorrow morning I go in to talk to my old doctor. So hopefully that goes
about
well.
the ADHD meds.
Yeah. And hopefully, with any luck, he'll get me back on my antidepressants too. Which I don't even know I don't know how much good they really did. Getting ADHD under control usually helps the depression more than anything else does. So.
Well, do you want to end early today? We don't have to.
No, we don't have to end early. I mean, like we can keep going if we have anything else to talk about. I was just talking to chat, and I was just trying to think of something to say, and I was talking about the fact that I couldn't think of anything to say. My brain just says
I do that all the time.
Yeah, I just feel so cloudy right now, like cloudier than normal. Like I'm cloudy a lot of times, but this right at the moment I feel like I'm literally in a cloud right now. I feel foggy. So, but yeah, I mean, you got any more tweets to look at or anything? Anything else that was like anything else on your mind?
Not really. Although let me check. I haven't looked at recent stuff.
I thought that did you watch that Ariela's or whatever?
I started watching a little bit of it, but I didn't have time to watch much of it.
It goes through. I mean, most of it's the same stuff that we've talked about before, but I just thought she put it in like a five basic points. I thought it was a pretty good kind of summation of the whole like how this kind of like the ways in which like the woke left are canceling the just kind of quote unquote canceling just being gay as like a thing. It's so weird, but yeah, but she did a good job.
I mean, I remember when the minute we got marriage, I remember the shift in support for gay, especially gay men. All of a sudden, all these people that were rooting for us to get marriage were attacking us for being cis gay like heteronormative or whatever part of the patriarchy.
Right.
And all
It-
the gay organizations shifted their mission to trans stuff out of the blue. And that's where all this weird stuff like pronouns and misgendering and dead naming and bathrooms and sports and all took off. None of that was part of the gay rights community at all when I was there. You didn't hear any of that. So it's like they replaced it with a completely new agenda and a completely new set base. But it was the same organizations. Because there was nowhere to go after marriage. They needed some other reason to exist and get funding. And so the trans came and filled in that container.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, I don't know. I'm so foggy, like I said. I don't know if you want to, if you feel like watching a movie or something tonight or something like that, we could do that. We'd put up a thing or something, see if anybody wants to watch something random or something. I don't know. I'm just kind of like, I don't know that I have much else to say right now. I mean, it's not, I don't necessarily want to end it early, but I don't know what else to say right now. I'm so.
Well, I mean, there's no reason to. We've gone 2 hours anyway. There's no reason to
Oh, yeah.
keep it going. If
I know,
you're
but I
gonna
guess
follow.
I'm getting used to like our longer stream. We've done long streams
I
last few
have
days.
to end in an hour anyway. I have something else in an hour.
All right, cool.
What
Yeah, let me go ahead
movie
and
would
do
you
that.
want to watch?
Oh, I don't know. I was just saying if you want to check out that Bill Burr movie or something like that, we can do that. We're doing True Detective again on Tuesday, I'm sure, right? And,
Remind me the Bill Burr one again.
It's called. Oh, I don't know if it's any good or not. It's a Netflix thing. I just can see if I can find a download or something.
Oh,
It's Old
yeah.
Dads.
Oh,
Old
right.
Dads.
And my
But it's
friend
supposed to
told me about a movie with Bill Pullman, a series called Sinner. The Sinner.
Hmm.
It's a
I
mystery.
think I've heard of that. I think I've heard of that show.
That I might like it.
I like Bill Pullman a lot. I liked. Have you ever seen that movie he did a long time ago? Called Zero Effect. You ever seen that one?
I'm thinking of Zero Theorem. No, I don't think I saw Zero.
Zero Theorem. No, oh yeah, Zero Theorem was the that's the
Like kind of futuristic.
yeah the one that what's his name?
Was it Dick? Philip K. Dick?
No, it's not really. It's not based. It is based on like a famous sci-fi thing, but it's the guy that made Brazil, and he's from Monty Python. Like Terry Gilliam. Yeah, Terry Gilliam.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Right. I forgot
Terry
it was
Gilliam's movie.
Gilliam.
Yeah, that movie had a lot of potential, but it got really boring at the end. I remember losing interest. I remember really into it in the first half, and then like kind of like losing the thread somewhere along the way. I tried to watch it again too, and I couldn't get through it. I don't know. I really thought it was a great intro though. It's like if I couldn't understand what the hell was going on in it, I really didn't. I tried my best, but I couldn't understand what the hell it was really about. But it was an interesting movie. Now Zero Effect is it's basically just it's the exact same plot as it's basically based on Sherlock Holmes. It's based on one of the early Sherlock Holmes movies or books.
Oh.
And but it's adapted entirely. It's not the character isn't Sherlock Holmes or anything, but Bill Pullman's character is this kind of like weirdo version of Sherlock Holmes. If you see if you've seen the first Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movie, they have like the same exact plot. It's kind of weird because like they're
No,
such
I've
different
seen
movies.
the Benedict Cumberbatch one, and that spoiled me for any other Holmes.
You like that one?
Yeah, the Sherlock series.
I like the first
Yeah,
season.
it's hard to
but
see Sherlock any other way after that. Just like David Suchet spoiled me for Poirot.
Well, I think Robert Downey Jr.'s is pretty good, but my favorite take on Sherlock Holmes is the Bill Pullman one, to be honest. But he plays it he plays a really weird version, but it's a good movie. It's worth watching if you haven't seen it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't even have anything specific or anything. I'm just saying like, yeah, we can go ahead and end it for what you got going on in about an hour. So you got another thing going on, another
Tonight,
meeting tonight.
Sundays are my gaming group, so
That's right.
I have to go game.
What game you guys playing?
We don't know. We're trying to get some online board games like through Steam and stuff, but we can't figure out how to make them work. So we're
sucks.
troubleshooting logistics right now. Whichever one we can get working is probably the one we'll play. There's Betrayal on House Hill, which it's a really cool board game. We want to try to play it online because we're all in different locations.
Right.
And so we want to find stuff we can play online.
I've never played one of those online board games like that. That sounds interesting.
They have these simulators that simulate the tabletop experience. So we're trying to get one of those to work.
Yeah, I haven't played any big board game thing since I was much younger. I haven't really had friend groups that were interested in that sort of thing for a long time. So I haven't done that in a long time. I always wanted to get into like D&D or something like that, or like tabletop role playing games, and I was friends with people that were into that sort of thing at several at different points, but they were never doing it whenever I was friends with them. It was always something they used to do or something like that, and I never wanted to go back into it. So I've never actually played D&D. I always thought it was something I would maybe be good at because I'm a writer and a storyteller by nature. So I always thought it was something that would appeal to me, but I never have never been able to actually do it. So I don't know.
Well, you had talked about like doing that communism socialism game.
Yeah, no, and I looked at that because you sent me like that
Oh, right, that set of I forgot what.
the set of rules,
Flex
the rule
or
set.
something like that.
Yeah, you sent me that, and and it was really a pretty cool little like thing, but like I just haven't had like the focus level. But we're gonna see. Like tomorrow morning, I'm going to hopefully get back to my medications and stuff, and I think that will change things a lot. I think it'll help me with a lot of things. I'm really hoping it will get me back into a mentality where I can get several things done, even if I have to deal with like the dizziness and the vertigo. Being able to like focus on something again will be. I'm so scattered all the time. Like if like it's a oh, hey, Adaptable. Yeah, thank you. Have a great rest of your day too, man.
Yeah, you doing this on high speed again. You didn't miss anything. The last 7 minutes, we just talked about movies and stuff. I don't think you missed anything.
The show's pretty much over. We're just about winding down, but
yeah, Joshua was
he was the show today.
Yeah, he really was. So if you missed his update on the situation in Israel, that's really the core of the show today.
Yeah, I would direct other people from like Paul's description. I would direct people in general to go to listen to this show today, to listen to what he had to say, because I think he said a lot of things that can put a lot of things in sharp focus for people that are really confused about this whole thing and the way this propaganda machine is being spun up around compassion and care and everything. I mean, I just like, the more I think about it, even the less sense it makes, like, about this whole like argument that like Israel is evil somehow, like because like they're attacking children. I'm like seriously, like right now there's like about a 3,000 civilian death count in Russia from Ukraine's retaliation. Like nobody gives a shit there. I mean, I'm sure some of those
and
people
Hamas attack children too. And it's still, poor Palestinians.
I'm just saying, but people are 100%
it's
behind
been like
Ukraine,
that from the beginning. The pattern is Arab aggression, Israeli defense, and then Israel becomes the perpetrator, and Palestine becomes. It's that drama triangle that they exploit every time.
I don't really understand why it's so easy for people like that are. I mean, empathic.
I think people have a bias against Israel for some reason, whether they see it as Western, imperialist, colonizing, anti-Semitic, whatever. There's some kind of bias against the idea or concept of Israel or Jewish people being in that part of the country.
Yeah, people need to get over that.
It's like, leave the poor Arabs alone.
Right.
And they were just like tribesmen living in a no man's land. But some people, and they were really aggressive and didn't want to share it with Israelis, but for some reason they have the moral high ground. They were the ones that constantly obstructed the peace process over and over and over. But it's Israel's fault that there's no two-state solution. Oh, Lord. I feel sorry for you, Adaptable. I can't imagine myself on high speed.
On 2x speed, especially. I don't know how to. I ramble too much to imagine like me sounding coherent at 2x speed. So people already tell me I talk fast. I mean, especially being from the South, like I do talk faster than a lot of people in the South do. I get told constantly, slow down, don't talk so fast down here.
Really?
Oh yeah. Growing up,
you talk one word at a time. I can catch.
That's what I hear, but
track your stream.
like you're not. You also don't have like that. I mean, just you from the South, but you don't have like a Southern drawl either. You're not. You don't. You talk a little bit faster than I think probably a lot of other people from this area do too. But I don't know. I don't know
Oh,
why.
I'm from
I don't even
South
perceive it.
Louisiana, which is it's not the normal South. I have a
Yeah.
Cajun Twanglish, and it's also Ebonic influenced. So we didn't grow up like normal Southerners. So I'm not adjusted to their way of talking either.
Yeah, I've gotten that my whole life. I mean, I've always been like, I've always gotten criticized for being like, for talking too fast. And I heard people told me that my whole life. I mean, even my grandparents, to to like
Maybe they
friends I
just
had growing
listen
up.
slow. Like tell them to listen faster.
You're right. Yeah.
How I don't know.
It
To me,
doesn't make sense to
I don't.
me.
There's nothing about the way you talk that stands out to me. Like I know people that do talk fast, and I have a hard time keeping up with like each word. Some of their words get lost in the speed, but I don't get that from you at all. Like I don't. You talk a lot, like you're voluble, but you're not particularly fast. It comes out at a pace
At
that's
normal
easy
pace.
for me to follow.
Maybe it's like hearing myself on the monitor. Maybe it forces me to slow it down somewhat. Maybe that is part of it or something. I don't know, because I don't even think I talk fast normally. But it always catches me off guard when people say that to me, because I'm like, I didn't think I was talking fast ever. So
I don't think you do. I wouldn't call you a fast talker. That wouldn't cross my mind as a way to describe.
You know, I whenever after I got off the stream yesterday, I went back and noticed, because I saw you guys were still on, and I heard you saying something to Rowan and to Liberty, whatever his name was. I think is one of the reasons that me and you both, is something that we share in common, that like I also am a very empathetic person that feels very burned out. And it's funny because like I was saying this to Lindsay at the time right before you talked about it on the stream yesterday, was that like you can't, if you are an empathic person, this is something that I just don't think, that I think a lot of these people are that they're just young, and they just don't know if they are empathic people at all, and like they tend to put themselves in the place of people that are, you know, they feel as if you really are susceptible to empathy, which I think empathy is more of a curse than a blessing, because you end up hurting so much from other things than more so than it ends up. I don't know. It can be, you can use that in a way to you know, to improve some things in your life, but for the most part it makes your life worse. And I think, like, because when I was younger, I was so susceptible to that sort of like that impulse as well, and I would, you know, same thing. I didn't step on, you know, you didn't want to step on bugs, and you don't want to walk through the grass because you'll hurt grass, that kind of thing. I know something about how you feel about that, and like, but it really burns out. Like there's like a part of your brain that just like literally burns out after a while. And I was just saying, I said to Lindsay, because both Rowan and him were both talking about, before you said the thing about how you're like a burned out empath. Like before you said that, I was saying like, yeah, you can't live like that all the time, because you'll literally just be in a constant state of exhaustion, because there's never a lack of things in the world that you can feel bad about for other people for. I mean, right now, people,
I've had to learn to turn that shit off.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be able to turn that stuff off. You can't live like that. It's not useful to you, and it's not useful to the rest of the world either. It's not a useful impulse to have to be empathic about all things at all times. I mean, like right now, we can pick a random country on a map, and you can find people suffering in that place, no matter where it is. You can find people suffering right now. You can find people suffering down the street from you. What about the homeless people in your own freaking city? I mean, like those people are suffering as well, and like and those people you could consider like those people are. Yeah, it's not a useful impulse, and like I understand like it's in the national conversation right now is Israel and Palestine. That's what's in the national conversation, so that's the reason why people are focused on it. But it's just they just don't seem to understand that it's just, I mean, yeah, it's fair. Even with Paul, I feel like Paul's like virtue signaling. I don't know why he's doing that. You know,
he
like,
has some really strong bias against Israel, and it seems to involve religion. And I think he's very much distorting the influence that this radical extremist religion has on the actual state of Israel and normal day-to-day Israelis. But for some reason he's latched on to, he sees that as more of a threat. But he freaks out about AI too, and he sees this big looming AI threat where I don't
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah, I
So
see
he
that.
tends to catastrophize, like he'll latch on to certain elements and catastrophize them. And part of it, because you know his background with conflict, it's probably setting off that, like, this is a major conflict on a global scale. So it's setting off that background of conflict he had as a child and having to resolve it.
Here, check this out. Check this tweet I just put in the
Oh, I
out there.
saw that.
Did you see that? Yeah. I was like, hey, it's finally something that Jeff can agree on.
I'm not sure how to interpret that. Is JJ on? Every time
He's on our side.
on
He's
my
on our side.
I get suspicious.
I felt the same way. And like the person that tweeted it, retweeted it, is a person I like too. That's what was it? Okay, I just posted this thing. It was in my timeline because someone else retweeted it that I like. I can't remember who it was now. I think it might have been Aiden Paladin. But yeah, I mean, but I was actually surprised. I thought it was funny though too, because like I kind of want to go, yeah, JJ, that's what we've been saying. Like that's one of the things that we criticize you on, is the fact that you tend to be like falling for this far left stuff so much, but like it seems like he's completely on the right side of something for once. So that was worth calling out anyway. It's, you know, applauding anyway that he's using his, I don't think he's Jewish or anything, so he doesn't have like that.
I realized that you showed me the tweet, but I didn't actually share it. Let me do that. There was another tweet that I meant to share, but I need to find it. It wasn't on my bookmarks. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Anyway, I was surprised to see that he was on the right side of this for once. It seems to be like actually the opposite. I wonder if that's what him and Paul are going to be discussing, because Paul's seemingly on like the leftist side of this, and it seems like JJ's on the right side of it. So, yeah, like yeah.
He's also like, he's one of the few people I know that's like as skeptical of conspiracy theorists as me. So every time like these conspiracy theories comes up, JJ comes down on the side of rationality to me, but like at no other time. And he has his own conspiracy theory thinking when it comes to Republicans and the right.
Yeah, everybody that's even slightly left leaning seems to be conspiracy leaning up about Republicans and stuff like that. I mean, which, you know, I don't have a problem with. I just think that if you're gonna start thinking there's conspiracies on the Republican side, you have to recognize the same exact stuff on the left side too, because if it's true on one side, it's true on the other side. But you know, they tend to be like all in against the Democrats, all in against the Republicans one way or another. It never seems to be there's any nuance to it. So I mean, I understand, like I don't like Republicans either. I just don't understand like what this impulse is to
I don't understand the demonization towards Republicans. The most they ever did was they obstructed gay rights and gay marriage. But other than that, they were never like bad people.
Democrats were doing that for a long time too, to be fair.
Yeah, no, like I don't understand how Republicans came to be the boogeyman of America.
I mean,
was it Donald Trump? Is it Trump derangement? Is it a side effect?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from that. But I mean, a lot of it's just this revisionist history idea.
A lot of the Republicans I know don't even like Trump. They're not a monolith.
No, I know. But I think a lot of
they're not evil, and they're not sinister, and they're not bad, and that's what, like, there's this, they get cast as it's because they don't interact with actual Republicans that they have this imaginary villain like archetype they cast them into, and that's what people used to do with gay people back then. They had all these myths about gay people that once you got to know them, you realize weren't true. And now the side that fought the Republicans is projecting the same type of myths onto Republicans.
When I say I don't like Republicans, I just mean I don't like politicians, because I say the same thing. I don't like Democrats either, because I don't think politicians in general. I think there's a problem.
Well, that's different than not liking Republicans. I think of Republicans as the Republican part, the voters that vote Republican.
No, I know. I'm saying, like, when I say I don't like Republicans, I'm not talking about I'm not talking about the voters at all. I'm just saying, like, I don't really like Republicans either because I don't like politicians. So I don't like any Democratic politicians. I don't like any Republican ones. If there are any out there that I like, that I just don't know about them right now. I tried, you know, I've tried to like a politician here and there. Like the last politician I liked that was in politics was Ron Paul. And you know, and I respected him because he actually had principles and he stood by them, and he never wavered on them. Unlike, you know, like your Bernie Sanders and stuff like that, which, because like I was not a Bernie supporter per se, but I had respect for him. At least I respected him, that he had
I
principles
never
that he stood by.
trusted him.
But yeah, as soon as he became a millionaire and he dropped that whole thing from his whole spiel, I fuck that guy. Like, seriously, fuck him. I hope he fucking dies dies in a painful way. I have nothing good to say about Bernie Sanders anymore, because like he showed himself to be a complete fucking fraud, in my opinion.
This is
You
the
know.
tweet we're talking about, by the way. Oh yeah, Anita Sarkeesian. Oh, maybe this is the tweet I was trying to share. Yes, this is it. Okay, Anita Sarkeesian, who's that? Is she the one that made the big thing about Gamergate and
Yeah, she is.
feminism and
She's
sexism in video games? Israel did not exist 73 years ago when they were a settler colony that took over Palestine and have been violently maintaining their position ever since. How many times have we heard this narrative in the last week here on the
Yep.
stream? If you don't
Yep.
know this history, here's a good primer. Well, look, community notes. Israel is recognized as a country by the United Nations, having been made a full member in 1949. It is therefore a country. And then JJ adds his comment. The far left really believes they can condescend and gaslight the young and easily influenced into submission about all this. I find it so incredibly off-putting. I find it off-putting when it comes from him because he does the same thing. It's basically like anti-thought. Don't question, just submit to the condescending words of your smug betters. I've always said wokeness was a form of bullying. It was the bully tactics and intimidation tactics that I see from the left that first turned me off of it.
And I agree with everything he said in that tweet. Absolutely. I just
Except
think it's
that he
weird.
does the same thing.
Yeah, I just think it's
Like,
weird
you
that he
wanna
doesn't
get a
recognize
mirror
that
and put it in front
he
of his
doesn't
face.
recognize that tendency in the left on anything else. It just recognizes about this one thing. And I'm just like, what the
I guess is that progress? Is that hope? Like, is because he
Hope?
does
Yeah, maybe.
recognize conspiracy theories, and he does recognize when the left are being bullies. So maybe that's like little chinks of hope in his perception that. But I also think he's cowed himself, and he's probably a little bit audience captured. So
Yeah, no, I think
he's
that's a
gonna
lot
let
of it.
himself be railroaded into certain positions too.
Yeah, I think
I
think
don't
his-
try.
his-
He doesn't make a great impression on me to begin with, and I don't really trust him to be consistent and principled.
Yeah, I
Plus,
know.
he's
I just
Canadian.
nonetheless, I think it's worth, it's worth recognizing when someone who I have generally been disagreeing with for a little while now, like says
Yeah.
something that I really agree with. So I think it was, and he has a fairly large Twitter following, so that's the tweet, and
fact.
he was saying it against one of my most hated leftists out there, which is Anita Sarkeesian. I can't stand that
I
woman.
can't stand
So-
him. I'm gonna like this tweet. That's how much I support that one tweet. So yes, good job, JJ, on that one position.
I have my doubts that he'll ever watch our show, but still, if he does, that I want you to know that I do
I don't.
support
I,
what you do.
I don't even care if he doesn't necessarily want him to. In fact, there was a stream. I don't know if it was John or somebody that was on, and we were talking about the JJ show that he and Paul did. And I invited Jay. I said, JJ, if you're watching and you want to come on here and talk about all this stuff that I'm saying right now about you,
Mhm.
feel free. And you're not gonna get the treatment that you get on Paul. I'm gonna hold you to the fire on all this stuff, all your bullshit. Because Paul lets him skate on a lot of stuff. Like John tried to get it. Oh my God, I got something in my throat. John tried to get a straight answer out of him of something about Republicans, and he never did. He would never answer. John could never pin him down to an answer. However, I've seen people flip flop there on both sides since. Oh, you on the 9/11 war? You mean?
I mean, I think it just means about war in general. Yeah, I mean, like, because like the same people that are all like, yeah, well, we got to stay in this war against Russia. We got to defend Ukraine with everything we have. Are like, Israel needs to show restraint and not beat up on poor Gazans. and I guess it's because in both sides, I guess like Gaza is technically a less powerful. They have it. It's a power dynamic every time.
Yeah, and I
that's
think
the
if you're
left of the whole
less
thing.
powerful, you shouldn't be picking fights with nations like Israel either.
I agree. Yeah, I mean it's completely. It would be like if Ukraine had instigated the war with Russia, if they had been the first to attack, which I mean apparently that's one of the things I actually started. One of the reasons I started talking to John was because he was telling me a while back about. Or in the chat of one of Paul's streams, he was talking about like the various incidents that led up to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, because there were actually incidents from Ukrainian aggression that actually led to that, and I didn't know about that. And like so, and
I
you're hard.
would want a source for all that.
I mean, he gave me a source, and I did find some, and you can find some about it, but it's very hard to find. Like, it was really hard for me to find the civilian casualty count for Russia. You can find the civilian count for the Ukrainians all day long, easily. You can find it in like just the search result in Google, but I had to like dig to find any results for Russia's civilian casualties, because like that just isn't. I mean, it's just not common information. You know, it's not information they just have out there. So there's definitely like a lot of political bias stuff happening. But yeah, it's all about everything on the left. Everything the left does is all about power differentials all the time. I'm so sick of it. It's just because one side is more powerful does not mean they have a responsibility to take care of the other one in every single situation.
But if you come from leftist ideology, that's exactly what it means, because that's what their whole ideology is founded on.
Yeah, it's entirely founded on that, and I'm realizing that more and more every day. Like
It's
I used to think it was,
it's one-sided,
Yeah.
it's myopic.
I used to think it was more complicated than that, but now the Israel thing really puts that into complete total focus. That the only thing the left really cares about is underdog versus powerful thing. You know,
It can't be more complicated because it has to be transmissible to enough idiots to sustain their ideology. It has to be simple and digestible. And so just like figuring out where's the power in this, where's the differential, and what side is who on there, you have your answer. It has to be that simple.
And
complexity is whiteness, so it's rationality and intelligence and all that. And that's anything that's too complex is inaccessible to everybody, and therefore an oppressive structure.
Yeah, I mean, they really have this viewpoint, and you see that in every other leftist type thing that's out there. They have this viewpoint that if you're in the weak side of the power differential, then if you're in the oppressed status, then anything you do is apparently justified or justifiable. Now, they might condemn the specific actions, but overall, they were doing it you might burn down your city, but you did it because you felt oppressed, and like therefore you can't hate them too much. They were oppressed after all. I mean, it's just fucking retarded. I mean, so like if a person feels oppressed and they therefore they murder people in order to fight back against oppression, if they literally just murder people, like, or what are you're gonna it's like they wouldn't justify the murders. They would say, well, I condemn the murders, but I completely have sympathy for the murderer.
Well, that's what they're doing with Gaza. That's what
I know.
And what about Israel and all the who suffered more oppression than the Jews? Like, what about it? Like, now that the Jews are not the underdog, all of a sudden none of their oppression counts.
Well, like the Thomas Sowell thing we watched earlier. That's what he was saying. He's like, if the Jews really want to people to stop hating them, they need to lose.
That's what I'm saying. They crossed over from oppressor to oppressed in the minds of the leftists that we've been talking to.
Yeah.
Like, their crime is being a successful nation or a successful civilization.
Yep. It's like we have like in this viewpoint, we feel like they feel like we have to tear down anything that's ever successful, no matter what it is. It must be torn down, because if it's successful, it means because we heard that just yesterday too. Also about like the whole thing about rich people and stuff like that. It's like, well, you can't. There's no way it's impossible to be a billionaire without oppressing people. And I'm not saying that there's a lot of billionaires that haven't done oppressive things or haven't done bad things. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case, but I don't think it's impossible for someone to become successful without it being like standing on the backs of oppressed people. It's just retarded. It's a retarded
I've said
mentality.
that. I said you can't assume that all people in a certain economic class all have the same psychology, and the argument was that there's certain forces that it's always invisible forces. There's certain forces that influence them once you reach that level of wealth that they're vulnerable to, that they're not able to resist, that's going to corrupt them no matter what. And I was not comfortable making that kind of blanket generalization.
Because it's you can't, like, I mean, like, because you brought up the J.K. Rowling thing, first of all, which is a brilliant point. Just like, I mean, she is like one of the richest people in the world because of books she wrote. Now, I don't like those books. I don't like J.K. Rowling, but like but trying
You brought it
to
up.
what was it me that brought it up? I think it was if it wasn't you, it was because I wasn't one that brought it up originally, but whoever
I thought
did,
you did. Well, I don't remember being that brilliant, but
yeah, but it's still,
I think it was
nonetheless,
you.
I think it was you, but nonetheless, I guess we can just sit here and compliment each other all day long. It doesn't
Okay.
matter. But
We can always run that
but
tape.
but the fact of the matter is, it's a great point because this is someone who got insanely wealthy off of just writing a story, and I think because Lib's thing, but well, what about the editors? That I was like, what? Like the editors? Okay, so if she used editors, I guess then what? The editors,
But they were
people that
exploited because
yeah, they were exploited because those editors deserve an equal cut of all of her wealth because they edited this. I mean, like editors don't necessarily do that much. They can. There's cases where editors are very important
you know
to the
that
creative
moral
process. But
foundation. In fact, let me pull it up. There's a moral foundation of fairness and cheating, and they modify it for Republicans. I mean, for people on the right. Let's see. The foundation is fair. The moral foundation of fairness is related to the evolutionary process of reciprocal altruism. It underlies the virtues of justice and right. So a lot of them work off of that moral foundation, but they identified another one that they call proportionality, and they say it's more common on the right or with Republicans, and it's
that was what Liberty was. That's one of the things his main things he was or she I guess I'm keep
and
forgetting that.
proportionality is it's not equity or equality that's fairness. It's being rewarded in proportion to your contributions. And
Yeah.
so people that work off of that moral foundation would see something like the editors having a lesser share as being completely proportional and therefore fine. People that work off of the fairness foundation see anything less than equality as unfairness. So, and they
Right.
identify as two different moral foundations, two different evolutionary impulses. And I think some of it goes to the free rider problem in society. And they see the billionaires as free riders. And we would see editors that getting paid way out of proportion than what they're actually doing as the potential free riders.
Right. And to a degree, I mean, like if editors that are in that industry, if it's possible for them to negotiate contracts and stuff like that, where they get like points on the back end of something like you would in a movie, then I think they should do that. You know, I think that would be fair for them to negotiate as part of their fee a potential
I'm sure
back-end.
JK editors have done that. They're professional. I'm sure they know how all this works, and they did negotiate for a handsome fee. And maybe a cut of the royalties, whatever, who knows? But I'm sure that they're satisfied with whatever arrangement that they worked out with JK, and they don't feel like they're being exploited.
And even if they do, fuck them. I mean, I'm sorry.
I mean, they didn't have to take the job. It's voluntary.
Yeah.
Like it's an opportunity to edit Harry Potter books. Like there's probably plenty of people that are going to take that just for the opportunity and the love of being able to say they did something like that. And they probably made out very handsomely in the process. I'm quite sure.
Probably, and maybe they didn't, especially on the first one. Like this book that she sent out to so many publishers, and like it was ignored by tons of publishers, and she finally got it published. I mean, like the story behind it. I mean, she was apparently practically homeless, or was homeless, or something at the time. I don't know how much of that's true. A lot of it sounds a little bit like a legend to me, but nonetheless, if any of that's true. That she wrote this story, and I mean, I personally think Harry Potter books are shit. So I don't think they deserve this.
Like, they're not even that well written. It doesn't take how much editing
was there to do, right? And like, I mean, I don't know if they edited it. I have no idea if they edited it at all originally. I have no clue what contribution editors had. But the fact of the matter is, people liked them a lot. They were extremely successful. People bought the books en masse, and and therefore, and a lot of they connect with a lot of children. A lot of people loved it. I don't get what the fervor is about, but that's not me. It wasn't. It wasn't for me. So who cares how I feel about it? The fact of the matter is, she became insanely wealthy off those books, and like I think she deserves, because it connected that many people. She didn't coerce anyone into buying the books. She didn't like hold guns to anybody's head and say you must buy this book or I'm going to kill this puppy dog. She didn't do anything like that. She simply wrote something that people really liked, and a publisher agreed and put it out there, and people bought it, and she became insanely wealthy. So I mean, there's no people can say well, I don't think she deserves that much money for it. Well, I mean, I don't think those books deserve that much money either, but it's the market decided that, not me.
Right.
And
Yes.
that person, there's no reason to think that her money should be redistributed or whatever the thing is, just because you don't think, so Jeff Bezos might maybe his employees deserve more of a cut or whatever. You could argue that all day long, but the fact of the matter is he did build that company. He didn't inherit it from anybody. He might have he might have had a hand up in the beginning to help him get started or something like that. I don't really know that much of the story, but I know he did build Amazon out of his garage, just like Microsoft was, just like Apple was, and I'm not saying all these people necessarily were homeless or had it that hard or something. They all probably had loans or something like that. But they still did build these things, and to try to say that they proportionately or whatever, or everyone involved deserves an equal cut and all this stuff like that. That what was that he was saying that everything should be worker co-ops, and I'm just like, worker co-ops don't even work that well in the first place. I mean, there was very few examples of them working that well, and they're not even that egalitarian in the first place. I don't understand why people think this is going to fix anything. It doesn't make sense. I mean, and not
think
everybody
there's
that
a
works
lot-
a job wants to be involved in the day-to-day operations of it either. Some people just want to go to a job and work their job and go home.
They're querulous with the free market in the first place, not with any particular person, and it comes down to this very naive view of human nature and the world. It's a child's Disney fantasy view of people and society.
Yeah.
The workers' co-op is this idealized world where all the human nature, they all have the human nature to share equally and be satisfied with disproportionality, and everybody geeks out on the idea that everybody got equal proportion. That no human works like that. Babies don't work like that. Toddlers don't work like that.
Yeah.
Where is the human nature that's going to sustain this fantasy society? They don't even have it. They pretend like they have it, but the minute they get in power, they're going to be the same way.
They always are, because it has nothing to do with actually wanting equality. They never actually want equality. They just want to be in power. They just use the equality thing as an excuse to hopefully get some of that power away, so they can have it. Because that's what they always do. Every communist, every socialist, they all say it's about fairness, about equality, but they don't really mean that. They just mean they want them to be in power. They want, as soon as they get the opportunity, they oppress the other side just as much as they feel like they were more than they felt like they were oppressed in the first place, and they feel no shame in it. I mean, we've seen it 1,000 times. These far lefties get in positions of power and they go nuts. They go crazy with how much they can lord it over people, and they think it's just so funny that they get to they get to be the boss now and all this shit like that. It's just a way to live out a fantasy, I guess. It's just so stupid. Anyway, I don't know. That whole thing just frustrates the hell out of me. I mean, because I think Liberty was he was very good faith for the most part, and I enjoyed talking to him. But I just don't understand how you expect it to work.
Well,
really.
and so many of them come from wealth. That's the other thing.
Yeah, it's a privileged position to have.
I don't know, working out their family resentments or something.
I mean, because you would think someone like myself, someone who's actually poor. I mean, I
Right.
literally live off food. I literally live
You
off
and I are
food
about as
stamps.
poor as they come, and we're about
Right.
as pro-capitalist as they come.
And it's not because I think that I think that I'm pro capitalism, because I think that one day I'm going to be super rich. I'm going to strike it rich, and I'm going to become I'll be one of the what's that that thing, the joke in Futurama where like Fry's like, yeah, he's like chanting, he's like, but in Ilias is like, "Oh, but you're poor, Fry," and he's like, yeah, but one day I'm gonna be rich, and then poor people like me better watch out. You know, it's not like that. I mean, it's not because I think that I'm secretly going to get rich someday and therefore then I'll get to be the one in power. It's not like that. I mean, I know that I'm probably going to be poor the rest of my life, and and that sucks, but that's just the way it is. But I mean, I don't like having to struggle every day of my life. I don't like that. But it seems like people like us, or like yourself and myself, it seems like we have much more reason to be, to burn the system down, all this stuff. It's always the people that already. It's just a luxury position, I guess. It's a luxury ideology. It's a champagne socialist bullshit, like they think that way because they can afford to, and they really know deep down that if their revolution ever did take off, it was ever successful, then they wouldn't really be affected by it, at least in their heads.
Or they'd be
think
one
that.
of the first targets of it. So why?
Yeah.
I don't understand the psychology of support, like being a wealthy leftist, anarch-capitalist, whatever they are.
It's because you can feel it deep down inside. You feel, especially living in this country, that it's never going to happen. Socialism's never going to take over. That there's never real threat of the revolution taking off, and that's why you can have this virtue signaling position of being pro-socialist or pro-communist or whatever, and you don't have any. Because if you really wanted to live in a communist society, you could go to live in a commune. There's plenty of them in this country, and you could live that life if you wanted to. But they don't do that because they don't really want to live like that. That's not really what they want. What they want is to gain their audience or whatever it is, like people like Vosh and stuff like that. It's all about just signaling to an audience of people that they know are gonna that they know are gonna just flock to that. Like they're catering to people I guess that ideally. I guess mostly actual rich people that are actually angry and maybe not as well educated on things, and then also people like them that are rich lefties that want something to signal about. I guess. I mean, I can't imagine what else it could be. It's a destructive ideology.
That just makes it even more bizarre to me. I guess I don't understand rich people, their psychology at all.
Well, it's always the children of the rich people, though, to be fair. The people that actually earned that wealth and
or new money, like people like us that suddenly become like my ex was same class we are, with the public school, single mom, lived in apartments, rent, struggled to get by, etc. And the minute he got all that Microsoft money, he was like a Rockefeller all of a sudden, and everybody like us was beneath him.
He got Microsoft money? What do you mean? He started working for Microsoft or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He made a tech fortune.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of those up here.
He started like a thing that got bought by Microsoft?
No, he started at some company that was one of the founders of Microsoft started even before it became Microsoft.
Oh,
so he got in very early on the tech wave, and he got like the first wave of those tech millions. A lot of people, that's very common up here. A lot of people that got into tech early up here are gajillionaires because they get royalties from all the tech that people have been using for ever since. Like he helped develop some Windows software that was very popular that people used for years and years as part of the Windows package. He gets royalties from all that.
I see.
So they're like little what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? Tycoons. They're little tech tycoons. And they're just like us, except they happen to get in the right job at the right time and became tech tycoons. And all of a sudden they are a completely different person with a completely different psychology. That's why when John says stuff like people at the top, they do have pressures that influence them and change who they are and their psychology and corrupts them and all that. I think there's something to that. And I thought that about the ex until his mom told me the story of him as a child at 5 years old. And he was acting the same way at 5 that he was acting with all this tech money. And then that's when the light bulb went off that the influence of the money only corrupted what was already there, that he was like that from birth. He was going to be that kind of person no matter what kind of job he ended up in. That's just his nature. So I think that's why I say like environmental influences like wealth can influence. They only influence natural tendencies that are already there. You can take 10 people and give them billions of dollars, and they're not all going to become like this person. Some of them are going to be kind and compassionate and virtuous and caring, and the wealth's not going to change that much. And some of them, it's just going to take that initial anti-sociality and just entrench it even more. But I guess my whole point of all this is we were talking about understanding wealthy people and their psychology. I've seen people like, even people like us, that when they become wealth, they become different and harder to understand than they are when they're just like our ordinary classmate or coworker.
See, Josh was saying, he said, he's back in the chat there. He said that, he said he's upper class and paranoia.
You're upper class too? You don't seem like it at all. You seem very down to earth. I would have never even identified.
Yeah.
Well, you're very ordinary and humble about it.
I do understand what he's talking about, like the fact that if you do have, any kind of wealth that's obvious, that it would definitely. I mean, that's the reason why you see so many times you see like people that like become like major actors or something like that, and like they suddenly they have like this crew that they like the entourage type thing. They have like, this crew of people that knew them before they got rich and stuff like that, because it's the only people they probably feel like they can really trust to actually like them, because as soon as you get that kind of money, and even then, even those people get you get suspected of those after a while, because you're like, well, maybe they're only sticking with me because I'm rich now, and so I'm sure that really is a big problem for people, and it really does. I mean, I'm sure it's bound to fuck with your head quite a bit. I mean, especially being wealthy on the level of like a Bezos or a Jeff or a Elon Musk kind of thing, or Bill Gates or whoever. I mean, it's got to be psychologically taxing in a way that I can't even imagine. Although I would say that I don't think it's probably any worse than the psychological taxation that you get from being so poor you're not sure if you're going to have a place to live the next month all the time. I don't know that it's any worse than that, but it's different certainly. So
I don't hate the wealthy. I just hate the ones that act like assholes. I know plenty of wealthy. I have wealthy friends. I grew up with wealthy people. I have wealthy people in my family. I don't hate any of them. Like,
yeah,
the wealthy people. This is the first place I've ever lived where I've seen wealthy people that's so disgustingly obnoxious about it that I actually have this visceral hatred for it, and it's targeted at very specific individuals. I have no problem with wealthy people in general as long as they act decent. I don't care, but wealth doesn't impress me. It never has. I'm not materialistic.
Yeah,
they're just ordinary people to me. Just like we all put our drawers on one day at a time. And so I don't hate the wealthy.
Yeah,
at all.
I certainly
no
don't.
Feeling about them one way or the other until they reveal their character.
I certainly don't think negatively about someone just because they have money. I mean, if they act like they have money, then maybe I might. But you know what I mean? It's a different thing. When if someone acts like they have money, that's what you're talking about, like the obnoxious.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I've known poor people that acted like they had money, so I think they're annoying too. So it has nothing to do with how much money they have in their bank account. My grounding came from my father. I was never given 100% of what I wanted. I was forced to earn 50% of the thing. Well, that's cool. I mean, that's a good way to see it. Certainly, once a kid gets old enough to understand that, once they get to the age where they can understand like the concept of earning something, then I think it's really smart to do. I mean, I think that's. I've always done that with my kids to some degree. I mean, there's certainly birthdays and Christmas stuff where I might just give them something, but
I only have about 5 minutes left, so lay it on us.
So what you're talking about, like within the wealth, there's like different types. So you got like generational wealth, like this would be basically the children that inherited wealth from their parents, comes on down. Most of the time, you'd like to think that they add to it, but you also got this popularity type of wealth. These are going to be like your movie stars, pretty much people that are in the public eye. They're different behaviors. They're different type of class of people. Because the paranoia is the same across the board, but the difference is with the popular people, you can't hide. You're in the public eye. So the hiding part is something you can't really get away from. So they behave completely different than the other type of people that are just like, I'm going to hide from, society because of it. Now, the idea of talking about like society generally hates wealthy people, it's always been a thing. French Revolution, they pretty much decimated the wealthy first. Like they went after these fuckers first. Keep in mind they had good reason. Like, you know, if you're poor and starving, that's where the food and the money is, right? It just is a thing. And from a political aspect, you have more of an ability to, like, say, lobby, things like that. You become more of a threat. Your vote can actually have a lot more bite behind it than, say, a lower classman who really can, all they can do is basically tick mark a piece of paper. There's always going to be an us and a them. It's just part of natural society.
The status.
It's not like a, yeah. It's just always going to be a thing. There's no way to avoid it. It'll always be a thing.
Yeah, I think so too. That's one reason.
Yeah.
I guess that's one reason I don't really have a problem with it. It's just the way things have always been as primates. I'm sure there was monkeys in the jungle that did that with bananas and stuff.
Probably so.
Maybe, but human society, a lot more devilish. I'd consider us to be the worst creatures that walk the face of the earth. It just is the thing.
I'm a Satanist. I have no idealization about human nature at all. I know how dark we can get.
As for my behaviors, slight difference. So like I told you, my old man was like old, like ancient, like Moses type of old kind of thing. He was career military. There was no toleration for any type of bullshit ever. So a lot of that had an impact on it. My first vehicle, I only bought half of it. My father got the other half, right? Now, I did get the vehicle I wanted, but it was because I could afford that half kind of thing. My parents never allowed me. I wasn't even allowed to have a vehicle until I could, like, change the oil, change the plugs, like what he decided as is a standard of maintenance kind of thing. So that's where the grounding came out for me. That's parenting, not like, social, like social or that type of environmental influence. Just good parents tend to spit out really good children. Shit parents spit out really shit children. It just is the thing that it is. You get that across the board regardless of your economical class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of had it. My family did something similar with me with my first car, but unfortunately, I learned everything I learned about cars on like really old cars, and so like now I can't change spark plugs on any of the current vehicle stuff because like I can't even find them in most modern vehicles. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Something like my daughter right now. She doesn't even want to she doesn't even want to drive right now, which I'm trying to encourage her to want to learn. But she's kind of short, so I think she's kind of worried about not being able to see over the steering wheel very well. So, yeah, I don't know. That's a side thing, but I know you've got to go, right, Jeff?
Yeah, I got to go to my next thing. So, thank you for coming on today, Joshua. What time you want to do it tomorrow?
That's up to you. I mean, we got True Detective at 6? So.
No, that's on Tuesday.
Oh wait, that's just right.
I have the men's group at 4 though, and then that thing
right,
with Anton after. So it'll have to be before 4.
Sure. I mean, if you want to just stream for an hour or so, or a couple hours, around, I don't know, 2, 3, whatever.
All right, I'll set it up sometime tomorrow afternoon.
All right. I'll keep an eye out.
Okay. Take care, people.
Yeah.
Take care, Joshua.
Good conversation. Later,
yeah, it's been great. Thanks for coming on, man. And goodbye to everybody in chat, Patty and etc. And Adaptable out there. Have a good day, guys. Hope the rest of your day and week goes well.
Yep.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
What's this music?
It's StreamYard music that they give you.
I don't know why it wouldn't let you upload any more of those tracks.
Because they were too large. They said the file was too large. It only allows a 30 megabyte file size.
I don't know why the files are so big either. That's weird. I'll have to take a look at that and see if I can fix that on there.
Unless I download them in like a higher quality. Oh, they were all flat. That's why.
Yeah, I think that's what I upload them with. But
if there's like an MP3 version, they would probably fit.
I can do that. I can fix that for you. I'll fix that in Zoom. We'll talk about that tomorrow. All right. See you.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Okay. I gotta go play games. Bye, Adaptable. Bye, Patty. Good seeing all of you. And we'll be around tomorrow afternoon sometime. So have a good rest of your Sunday. Take care.